Uh, We're all ready to start. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Environment and Regeneration Committee of 12th of November. I'll pass over to Connor for notice and summons a meeting.
Thanks, Chair. Members, you're hereby summoned to attend the monthly meeting of the Environment and Regeneration Committee to be held as a hybrid meeting conducted remotely via WebEx and physically in the Council Chamber, Guildhall, on Wednesday, the 12th of November 2025 at 4 p.m. And I'll take the roll call. Alderman Derek Hussey. Alderman Keith Kerrigan. Alderman Julie Middleton.
Here, Connor, online.
Councillor Paul Boggs.
Shaw, Connor.
Councillor John Boyle. Councillor Caitlin Deeney.
Apologies.
Councillor Gary Donnelly. Councillor Alex Duffy.
One shot.
Councillor Rory Farrell.
Here.
Councillor Sean Fleming.
And shot.
Councillor Emma McGinley.
Connor.
Councillor Patrick Murphy.
Shot.
Councillor Declan Norris. Councillor Martin Riley. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Connor. We'll do the broadcast statement. I would like to remind everyone physically present at this meeting or in attendance remotely that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. The broadcast may be terminated or suspended in accordance with our protocol. Due to your attendance at this meeting, you're consenting to being filmed and to using storage of those images for broadcasting or training purposes and for the purposes of keeping historical records and making those records available to the public. Members and approved speakers are reminded to only have their mics and cameras on while speaking at the meeting and to use the chat facility to highlight a request to speak. A copy of the Council privacy notice may be found on the Council website, www.derrystrabane.com. The next item is declaration of members' interest. If anybody has anything now, or if you want to just move on through each item and mention it then. Thank you. The first item open for decision is the presentation. Oh, sorry, it's Chair's business, sorry. Oh, we do this, do the deposition first. Number is a presentation from DFA Roads. And I'd like to welcome Daniel Heaney, who's the Western Divisional Road Manager, and Alistair Greer, who's the Section Engineer for Derry and Strabane.
There.
Thank you, Chair. I'm delighted to be able to present DFI Roads Annual Report to Council and highlight some of the challenges and successes we've had over the last year. This is the fourth time I've had the opportunity to address this meeting, and many of the issues I touch upon this afternoon will be familiar to those of you who have attended previous presentations. Similar to previous years, the main challenge we face in DFI when seeking to maintain and improve our roads infrastructure is funding. This year's capital funding for structural maintenance covering all divisions is around £68 million. Capital funding allows the department to complete larger scale resurfacing schemes to significantly prolong the lifespan of our roads. This level of investment is welcome and helps towards the £190 million per year maintenance requirement to keep our roads in their current condition, recommended by the Barton Report on road maintenance. While this level of funding is perhaps not what we in the department would hope for, there will be opportunities to bid for additional monies within the periodic monitoring rounds. And I'd like to assure councillors that we will be bidding strongly for as much in-year funding as possible, which will then be translated directly into improvements for our local roads infrastructure through additional resurfacing schemes over and above those indicated in the report in front of you. I can confirm that the department will also continue to implement our limited service maintenance policy across all our maintenance activities. This means that only the most severe defects are repaired. I know I've highlighted the effect that this approach has on the quality of our roads and the future maintenance burden that this may leave the department, but I would stress again that my teams are doing all they can to ensure that the network is managed in the most efficient and effective manner. The report itself details an extensive list of maintenance, network development, active travel, street lighting and structures schemes, along with network planning statistics completed in 2024-25 and programmed for the current year. I'm not going to go through them in detail, but I'll give a brief run over the scale of the work completed. In 24-25, you'll be aware that the High Court ruled against the department in June. The High Court ruling against the department in June, which applied to the length of the proposed new A5 between the south of Strabane to Ballygawley. The department, as you're aware, has lodged an appeal against this ruling, and this is scheduled to be heard in December. Work continues in relation to addressing the Planning Appeals Commission recommendations on the new buildings to south of Strabane and Ballygawley to border sections. These will be subject to separate consultations and ministerial decisions in due course. The Department and Council also continue to work together on the advance of the growth deal infrastructure projects at the Riverfront and in Strabane Town Centre, with an integrated delivery team set up for the Riverfront project and a partner consultant due to be appointed for the footbridge scheme. On the maintenance front, we completed over 31 kilometres of roads resurfacing, over 5.4 kilometres of footways resurfaced at over almost £500,000 and 159 lane kilometres of surface dressing at around £1 million. There are over 200 drainage schemes at a cost and the clearance of around 41,000 gullies in 24-25, which equates to around 89% of our 48,000 road gullies. And that's to ensure that roads remain in a safe and passable condition. This is the time of year we try to complete most of our gully cleaning to remove leaves and detritus from the drainage systems. We completed around over 5,000 kilometres of verges cut, and over 9,600 priority defects were recorded within the year, with 89% of them repaired within the required timeframes by a limited service policy. There were 116 winter service call-outs, salting over 400 kilometres of roads each time they're called out. Over 4,700 notifications to excavate within the highway was also dealt with. Our network development section, which includes traffic management and road safety improvements and street lighting. From a safety point of view, we completed schemes of almost £500,000, including the Strand Road, Rock Road, signal upgrade, and 4 traffic calming schemes, including Claudie Main Street. There was also the introduction of a number of speed restrictions, warning signs, parking restrictions, and other parking bays. Active travel schemes of almost £750,000 was completed in the calendar year 24-25, and that include the Forgland Road in Claudie and the Clooney Road in Campsie, which is ongoing. We also invested over £1 million in street lighting during this period, split among around 20 schemes. From a structures point of view, we invested over £200,000 in the upkeep of our structures on 12 schemes, which included parapet repairs and masonry arch repairs and gunlighting. And again, over £250,000 invested in the repair and reinstatement and upgrade of our vehicle restraint systems. From a network planning point of view, we completed over 775 planning consultations, around 80% of which were responded within the timescales. And we adopted 22 private streets in new developments. In 25-26, we've more or less completed 20.5 kilometres of planned resurfacing works at a cost of over £2 million. And the surface dressing for the year is complete, with 101 lane kilometres of surface dressed within the council district at over a cost of over £750,000. In addition to that, 3.5 kilometres of footway resurfacing has been carried out. We also continued to carry out a responsive set of drainage improvement projects during this period at a cost of over £350,000. As part of our maintenance policy, we'll be completing a single set of road gully cleaning with reactive cleaning within budgets. Similarly, outlets and open drains will be cleaned upon inspection by roads inspectors to assist in controlling surface water and maintaining the roads in a safe and passable condition. Generally, there are 2 grass cuts across the season, with additional cuts where safety issues are identified, such as at junctions to maintain site distances. Following a change to our policy to encourage biodiversity on our roadsides, some of our more rural, lower trafficked roads may only receive a single cut. Defects will continue to be repaired in accordance with the limited service policy, and generally speaking, that means all defects over 50 millimetres deep will be repaired, and all defects over 20 millimetres on trunk roads will be repaired. The plan is to complete a normal winter service salting operation on our roads. From a safety point of view, the budget this year is around £500,000, and we've identified 6 schemes, including the provision of junction upgrades, the most significant being the Bellspack Road upgrade, which is nearing completion. And earlier this year, we carried out the Dales Corner preliminary work in preparation for construction of the modification of that junction in the next financial year. There are also 3 traffic calming schemes, and again, numerous changes to speed limits, waiting restrictions, and weight restrictions. Active travel is mainly focused around design for the coming year, and that's valued at around £850,000, with 5 footway cycle schemes, including the Woodvale Road in Eglinton and the Cluny Road. There are 27 street lighting schemes at a cost of approximately £800,000 scheduled for this year, and this is down on previous years, and that's mainly due to a reduction in budget. There are also £500,000 worth of structures upkeep, including mainly confined to parapet replacement and invert repairs, and £130,000 for around 5 VRS repair projects. That completes my fairly brief rundown of the headline figures, and I appreciate it was a whistle-stop tour, so I'm happy to expand on any information that I've mentioned. I'd like to once again thank members for their correspondence and contact with the department over the past year. I appreciate that all requests to the department are an effort to benefit the lives of constituents and the travelling public. My team and I share these aspirations. However, too often, the service we provide is dictated by the resources available. The sad truth is that infrastructure, along with many other public services, including local councils, are operating in a challenging funding environment. That said, I will continue to make the strongest case possible for additional funding to be allocated to Western Division, including the Derry City and Strabane District Council area, and ensure that we are in a position to put that funding to work and improve safety and condition of our roads within the district when given the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Alistair. A lot of information there. Firstly, I think everybody's been given a request for an inquiry form, and we've all been sent it by email as well. So if you have any information to put in, the first hand I seen was Rory's, and then.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to Daniel and Alistair for coming here today. I would fully agree that the department is operating in a very, very difficult financial position. I think nobody will be unaware of the state of disrepair of roads, road markings, street lighting schemes that need updated and upgraded right across the city and district. And I think all reps, all councillors, all MPs, etc., are contacted on a very, very regular basis. They try and get improvements in their local community. And I know that, when we report something, we have to email again and again and again. And the message that's coming back to us is that due to budget constraints, you can't give a timeline for the implementation of the requested work. And I get that. So I do appreciate the very difficult funding situation you find yourself in. I do appreciate that the funding envelope that comes down from the Minister is insufficient to meet demand. But I just want to touch on the spend across this council area, because I have, there was a DUP MLA from North Down, Peter Martin, asked the Infrastructure Minister in September for a breakdown of spend per council area over the last 10 years. I've had a look at it. The spend in Derry and Strabane is not great. In the last year reported, we were 8th out of 11 council areas. In the 8 years that we have data for, we were in the top half on one occasion. So, the spend across this city, across this district, in comparison to other council areas, is low. We don't think that's fair. We don't think that's balanced. We obviously think that our city and district should be prioritised. And, there are so many streets, roads, areas across the city and district that could be improved. And what I would note is that in the last 2 years, the spend across our city and district for road maintenance was £20 million. Newry and Down in the same period had 36 million. So there's quite a disparity there. And our view is if there was more money available in the budget, the Strand Road could be resurfaced, Barnes Court could be resurfaced, Oak Bridge could be resurfaced. There's so many streets across the town that we are being contacted about on a really regular basis that could be upgraded if there was budget available. And a particular bugbear of mine, and I've been reporting this for 2 years, is there's a box junction on Greenhaw Road at Steelstown Road. I've been reporting that for 2 years, that it needs relined. And the answer that keeps coming back is we don't have the budget. And that's really difficult to explain to constituents who are seeing this safety issue before their eyes every single day. We've been reporting it for 2 years and no action has been taken. So our view is that the budget, the spend across this city and district is too low. There is this push from the Stormont Executive about regional balance, about getting investment into the Northwest. And, those figures that we're seeing is that we're in the bottom half. We've the fourth lowest spend in the 23-24 year. And we don't think that's acceptable. We want to see that increase. So my question in terms of the budget, I get there's a budget difficulty, but there's 7 other councils that are getting more investment than our council. So if you could shed some light on that, please. And I've got one question, a specific, about the long-awaited widening of the A2 Buncrana Road. I know it's paused at the minute. I know it's paused until the regional transport strategy is complete. I know it's paused until there's sufficient progress with the Northwest Transport Plan. But this is a project, a £100 million project at the minute. The people in this city have been crying out for years. Congestion on that road is leading to congestion right across the city. So have we any idea of realistic timescales to have some sort of movement to unpause that project? Because we need to see progress and we need to see it soon. And that's all I have to say. I do appreciate the work that has gone on in the past. We'd like to just see more in the future. But if you could shed some light on the budget, because we don't think we're getting our fair share. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Farrell. Go ahead.
Thank you. I think, Councillor Farrell, there were 2 main issues there, one being the budget allocation. You mentioned that the query had been put up by your colleagues as an AQW. Is that? Oh, sorry. I haven't had sight of that AQW, if that's what it was. But what I would say is that the maintenance funding coming from headquarters is allocated on the basis of a number of indicators, including the kilometres of road, population, the condition of the roads. So it's allocated on that basis. What I can do is look to see if there's any change to the way that is allocated and come back to you if that's okay. With regards to that's the initial allocations. What we tend to try and do if there are monitoring rounds, we try to bid quite strongly, because quite often, and this year is no different, we're pretty much spent out by late autumn. So if more funding became available, we would be able to spend more money within the district. And since I've been in post, I know we've always bid very strongly, and generally in Western Division, including the Derry City and Strabane area. We do tend to take more within those monitoring rounds because that's less, quite often it's what you can spend rather than what you're allocated. So we do tend to perform a little better in that means, but I can certainly come back to you with regards to the funding model that we operate under. With regards to the A2 Buncrana Road, you're right. It is paused at the moment, and it is dependent. The design and taking it forward is dependent on the North West Transport Plan, and that's due for public consultation in spring 2026. So hopefully that will be developed during next year, and that will give some clarity as to when and how the Buncrana Road is taken forward. Obviously, there's a prioritised list of strategic route improvement schemes that are out there at the minute that was published earlier this year. And because it's paused, Buncrana Road wasn't included in that. And once the North West Transport Plan is completed, we'll be able to get clarity on whether that should be included in future schemes. A lot of my team here in the district are based in many of the constituencies that you represent. So they're equally eager to see these projects and road improvements and maintenance projects to be carried out as well. So certainly as soon as we have that clarity, it'll be publicised with regards to whether we take the Buncrana Road through and where it sits within our priority list.
All right. Thank you.
Sorry,
Oh, sorry.
Just you mentioned the road junction markings. We do have a budget for markings. We have a new contractor started in September, and they're out doing work within the city. They were on the A5 recently doing the markings there, so they're about. And I'll check the schedule if that work's been on. It should be on the schedule. Given the weather, it's hard to get these markings done when it's wet. We got there, so I'll take a look at that, make sure that's on the list, and see if we can get that sorted for you.
Thank you, Daniel. Next person I have, Commissioner Riley.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Daniel and Alistair, for coming in. And it's always useful to see the report in advance, and the way that it's presented is very accessible. And it's good to have these conversations in the chamber, but also the sheet, Chair, that is given to us to raise individual queries are always picked up and dealt with. So thanks to officers in DFA for all of that. Chair, just in relation to the report, page 49, phase 2, duly call to Drumahoe is the piece I want to raise. People may have seen last night on BBC Newsline, we had the principal of a local school, we had concerned parents and indeed local businesses all raising concerns around the moving of the congestion that previously would have been in the Dungiven village, now taking place on a daily occurrence in Drumahoe. In this chamber, when the A6 was being discussed and the upgrades that were planned for that part of the Derry to Dungiven bypass, we had in this chamber people from Dungiven who came and told us around their concerns for air quality and the impacts that all of these things were having on their village. And now, unfortunately, the people of Drumahoe are experiencing all of those concerns. So I suppose my question is, off the back of the report, and as I said on page 49, it does outline the current position. We know that the illegal dump at Maboy is having a huge impact, and that DAERA have working through their remediation strategy. But alongside the work that DAERA has done, and they did do, Chair, we touched on this at previous meetings, a very good public engagement session. And on top of that, there are a number of other very good community engagement events taking place, the likes of sorts like what the Gathering organisation have organised this week and in recent days. So all of that community work is there. What I would like to know from DFA is what work is being done in conjunction with DAERA to ensure that we are able to see the completion of this flagship executive programme project to connect over Drumahoe to the A2, because that will take a huge amount of traffic away out of Drumahoe. It'll also take a huge amount of traffic out of the waterside in general if people in HGVs are able to navigate away from the city over to the port. And I think all of those plans are there, but we know the difficulties with Maboy. But what efforts and energies have DFI expended to ensure that those conversations with DERA are happening so that we can see a completion of the A6 flagship project as soon as possible. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. I know that my colleagues in the Strategic Route Improvement Scheme, who are responsible for the design and delivery of the Phase 2 of the A6, are engaged with NIEA. Ultimately, the NIEA are responsible for the remediation of the Moboy site to allow us to safely and environmentally safely carry out the preferred route of the A6. So, unfortunately, until that is resolved, advancing that particular scheme becomes very, very difficult unless you start to take 2 steps backwards and start re-looking at the route of that scheme. And obviously that takes you a number of years back because the preferred route has been consulted on, is my understanding, to a certain degree. So the sad truth is, for that particular site, we can't move that forward until that particular issue is resolved. And once that is, it does remain on our list of priority schemes to take forward. So it'll be taken forward as quickly as the department can once that's been resolved. I recognise that there has been an increase in traffic in Drumahoe, and the department is currently has briefed our consultant, external consultant, to carry out a study of the existing A6 into the city to see if there are any measures that can be implemented there that will help offset some of the new development in the area, because that's obviously had an impact as well as the completion of the existing A6 on the traffic moving in through Drumahoe. So we are looking to see if there are other measures, whether they're active travel or carriageway related, to see if we can help improve the situation and the issue that's been raised there.
Thanks for that. And just quickly, Chair, that piece of work that you're doing internally, can that, when it's ready, be shared with elected members, just in terms of what mitigation measures might be possible, please?
Yeah, if measures are possible and funding is available to carry out some of that work at the moment, then it'll be placed into our next council report. It's unlikely to be, because we're only carrying out the feasibility study at the moment, it's unlikely to be within the next 5 or 6 months. Once we get through the feasibility, then we start looking at carrying out the detailed design. So if it's planned for next year, then I'll make sure that it's included in the council report.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. And thank you, Councillor. I'm going to just make a couple of wee points, just because I'm a Faughan DEA councillor, so a lot of the area around what we discussed there around Drumahoe is my area. Just a couple of points. So in any bottleneck, it leads people to go, well, they'll take any road to get away from the bottleneck. So one of the areas I represent and I live in is Eglinton. And like some of the figures that vehicles coming through Eglinton, it's something like 6,750 vehicles come through Eglinton every day. What's another route that people's using now, instead of coming down to Drumahoe, they're turning left and going on the Ardmore. They use them as a bypass to get away from the bottleneck of Drumahoe. And again, where I would see Ardmore should be a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit, it's a 60-mile-an-hour speed limit. So people are coming on there flying, rushing on a country road that they don't really know probably, and they're passing a school every morning, and it's just sort of chaos. It's an accident waiting to happen, you know. Other routes, they're going down past the Belfry. They're using any route to get away from the bottleneck. The big one for me is the final stage of the A6. I agree with everything he says, you know, around Moboy and all the rest, but we're using Moboy as an excuse, you know, and Moboy could take years until it's finished. So then are we going to come up in and say, yes, here's the route, here's the plan, and we're going to build it? Me looking at just simply engineering background and safety. No, if you're looking at safety, you look at the hierarchy of control, and you look at elimination, you look at engineering fixes. You know, if you can't put in elimination, put in the engineering fix. And we can do that. You can do that if you have the right money. And I understand it's not just it needs a minister to they get that funds to allow that to happen. I really think we just need to make it happen, and that's my own personal view. The next person to come in is Councillor Milden. Please.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me in, and thank you on behalf of the DUP, Alistair and Daniel, for being here today to present your detailed and informative annual report. As a party, we would firstly like to put on record our thanks to your workers at every level. I know personally speaking that there is not a week that goes by where I'm not in touch, and whilst this work between us continues and we engage on issue-based conversations, please do know that I am very grateful for your time and efforts, and I do commend you on all the work, a phenomenal amount district-wide as detailed in the report. There are many, many issues in the Faughan area which I serve. You will be aware, no doubt, of the sheer size of the area, as well as the rural exposure to flooding, wind, storms, storm-related issues, and other environmental and social factors that affect our vital rural infrastructure. I will, of course, send on the form that you provided prior to the meeting. However, it is lengthy due to the large amount of issues across the whole area, but almost all of them I have already raised. Thank you also for the contact sheet provided at the end of your report. This morning I had sent on an email that was marked urgent. I preferred to send this as it had photographs and information attached that was vital to the topic, but I did want to ask, is there any other method aside from a telephone call that you prefer if it is really, really urgent, because it's taken about 8 hours for a reply and I have a resident who can't get into their house because of flooding. Whilst I recognise today you probably won't have time to go through all of our local issues, I do have a few further queries that I would be so grateful if you would answer today when I'm finished speaking, please. So I have raised the issue of flooding on Dunalong Road in Brady now multiple times for weeks. I am visiting the site daily and it is not improving at all. Unfortunately, just last night, as I've just referenced, one of our residents couldn't get access via car to his front entrance to his house, and I'm sure you will agree that that is just not acceptable. But I have been asking for this flooding to be resolved now for, I think, going on to 6 weeks, and I know that there is a site meeting coming up on Friday, but that doesn't help the gentleman get into his house tonight or tomorrow night or even on Friday morning or until mitigations are put in place. So I would please ask that if you do anything today, you leave with that in your mind, and hopefully something can be done to help those residents out, because it's a small rural road. I think it maybe hasn't been given the priority that it should. Another area that is flooding now really regularly is the Dullerton Road close to Cullion Corner. And the issue in both of these areas, so the Dullerton Road in Cullion and the Dunalong Road in Brady, is that both roads allow for up to 60 miles per hour and there's not a street light in sight. Unfortunately, this causes danger on the road, and it absolutely brings me no joy to state today that I believe we will absolutely have a very serious accident, if not a fatality, on either or both of these roads if the flooding isn't taken care of. Now, I am here speaking as a Faughan councillor, but I do have waterside councillors who aren't on this committee, so some of my questions overlap between the areas. As referenced by Councillor Riley, I was really concerned about Drumahoe and have been for a number of weeks. So I would ask, as per my email request that I sent a number of weeks ago now, that speed limit signs are erected near to the new homes on the Drumahoe Road. I believe it's at 30 there, but I, from experience of driving there, believe that people think it's 60, and the children that are walking to school and their parents are in fear of, again, a very serious accident. So I would ask an urgency be put on getting those speed signs put up. My waterside councillors would also very much welcome an update on Lincoln Courts. And Lincoln Courts, the road is in a terrible condition and it has been for some time, and the residents are really worried that it's just not going to be done. Just on the same note, could you please outline which areas are the highest priority for resurfacing, and also how this is decided, just to help us all have a better understanding of how this comes about? I am aware that Gary Middleton MLA is in receipt of a response from the Minister regarding the Woodside Road, which is also a resurfacing query. Do you have indicative timings for the resurfacing and completion, please? And finally, I have worked closely with your department and residents of Macromason for many months and was assured of the following mitigations. So advanced warning signs on approach to the crossing on both sides, new slow...
Sorry, Councillor Milden. it might be better, you know, that if we put all the requests of the local issues onto the form, the request and
Aye.
inquiry form.
Declan, I've been sending these for weeks and weeks and weeks, so I think if I can get an answer now, and I'm about 2 sentences away, if that's okay to complete.
It's just, I've 10 people now, like,
Aye.
10 people wanting to speak, Councillor Middleton, you know, and it's
No,
going to,
Chair, that's fair enough, Chair, but I do note that the previous councillors that spoke brought up local issues, so I don't think it should be any different with myself.
I respect that. If you can wrap up now.
Yeah,
Councillor
I
Middleton,
I did say finally. So finally, I've worked closely with the department and residents of Macromason for many months, and I was assured of the following mitigation. So advanced warning signs on approach to the crossing, new slow road markings on approach to the crossing, new high-vis bollards on the traffic island, and I was just wondering, when will these works agreed in June be completed? There are many other issues, but I do respect the time of everybody here, and I sincerely thank you for your time, and I look forward to hearing your answers, and thank you, Chair, for letting me finish there as well.
thank you, Councillor Middleton. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. There were quite a few issues there with regards to the flooding issues. Just very quickly spoke to Alistair while you were speaking there. It's not one that the first one there in Dunbar Road. I wasn't aware of that one. I can certainly follow up with my local team and get back to you on those flooding issues. We'll also look into the speed limits signage at the new development on. This is at Drumahoe, the Braidwater development you're talking about on the Glenshane Road.
Yeah.
All right, yeah. Now, as you say, that there is a speed limit restriction on the approach to that. Is it at the roundabout?
Apologies, Alistair. I actually mean on the Drumahoe Road, so I'm not sure of the exact name of the development, but it's just before the left turn into Fincairn Road, and then the primary school is on the right.
Well, we can certainly look into that, Councillor. The prioritisation of roads is one that you mentioned there with regards to the condition of a number of roads within your constituency. The prioritisation is generally based on a number of factors. The primary one being our regular maintenance inspection of the roadways and investigations carried out through our scanner machines and other investigatory means. Generally, they're the primary instances of highlighting road condition, and we always look to prioritise those roads which are in the worst condition, the most highly trafficked, the ones that we get an awful lot of very genuine concerns raised over. That's essentially the prioritisation process that we go through. And I appreciate that there are a number of roads out there that are probably in a condition that we would prefer them not to be in, especially in rural communities. But our funding is such, I mentioned earlier, the funding necessary to keep our roads in their current condition is around £190 million per year across all of our divisions, and we got 68 million this year, and we haven't received anything else yet through the monitoring rounds. So by necessity, we need to make sure that any repairs that we carry out are on those roads that are in the worst condition, that carry the largest number of people. We do have a rural roads funding stream as well to make sure that we do seek to address those rural roads similar to the ones that you mentioned. And again, as I say, by necessity, we need to prioritise those that are in the worst condition. Now, roads can deteriorate very rapidly, especially at this time of year, and that may mean that some roads that are on our schedule perhaps are overtaken by prioritisation of other roads that deteriorate at this time of year. But we try to manage that as best we can, and we'll continue to do so. With regards to a couple of the others there, we may revert back to you just to get some clarity on the details of them so we can provide a more fulsome response, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Alistair, you were going to say?
You mentioned Lincoln Courts there and Woodside Road. You'll see that there in the report for this year, and our intention is still carry them out this year. Lincoln Courts, if not started in December, will be started in January. On Woodside Road, where the civil works going on there at the minute, and we'll be resurfacing that in the new year, January time. think that's all.
Thank you, Alistair, for that. And thank you, Councillor Milton. The next person I have to, Councillor Duffy, please.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you to the FI for their presentation today. Just a quick one. It's already been discussed, the resurfacing schemes when there's many that need completed, and we are well aware that there is budget restraints. Would it be possible to get any current approved ones for 25, 26 sent out again? I know we can't go beyond that because your budget doesn't allow it, but yeah, 20, 25, 26, if we could get that circled around everybody, that would be good.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy.
Sorry, just so I'm clear, Councillor, the list of schemes that we currently have budget for is within the programme for 25-26 within the council report. Are you looking for what other schemes were considered, or?
Sorry, apologies. Yes, I know they're in the report, but the ones what also were considered and might be considered again in the future if the budget allows it. Just ones that are on your radar, because we do get contacted a lot about these schemes, and I know I've been sent them in the past, but things change, and it would be good to get it sent out again. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, we can share what is currently on our list of potential schemes. It's very much dependent on any funding that we get, but it also evolves very quickly. As I mentioned, this time of year, we tend to see deterioration of roads very quickly, and the position of particular roads can vary very, very quickly. So any list that we provide, we generally prefer not to, because then a lot of the perception is that we have these on our programme, and while we don't have funding for them, that programme or that list can change very, very quickly. And then obviously we can be accused of not carrying out what we had said we would do. So I would caveat any information that we provide on potential additional schemes very heavily, if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. The next person to speak, Councillor Boggs.
Gurmogat, Kehirla, and thank you very much as well to the staff from DFI. I'll refer you to my inquiry form because that's going well so far, but I have a long list of issues that I've sent in, so I look forward to responses coming back in relation to them. But just on behalf of the Sinn Féin group, and can I thank you for your engagement throughout the year as well. It is really useful to get you into the chamber with the annual report, but like all elected reps, we engage with you much more regularly than once a year, probably much more regularly than you would like sometimes as well. But just say thank you for all your work in the year past, and we look forward to working with you in the year ahead. And we understand the position that you're in locally, the position that the department is in overall. And while it is welcome that there is an increase in both resource and capital this year, you could do with a whole lot more. And nobody is denying that. And I do welcome recent comments in the Assembly chamber from the Infrastructure Minister that she does want to put as much focus as possible in relation to roads going forward where she can within a year funding and monitoring around. So we look forward to that, because we know as the type of council area we are that we do benefit from those, as you have already outlined, but in particular rural roads benefit from a year funding where money can be spent quickly, and with a huge network of rural road right across the city and district. You know, we have plenty of roads there that can be doing with it whenever the funding becomes available. So we will love and hope for that. I suppose just a couple of points generally, and I raised this with Alistair and the team before, is just in relation to communication. So there is some details on the back. I feel like sometimes I'm overloading the DFI inbox on my own, never mind making up the rest of the reps in the area. But it's just around the best form of communication, because sometimes we're being told email in, sometimes we're being told phone in, sometimes we're being told use NI Direct. But just an example, just this morning, I was dealing with a sensitive enough case of a lady who was returning home after a stay in a hospice, and she had raised the issue of surface ponding outside of her house, and I've raised it 3 or 4 times before. But given that she was getting home today, she expects an influx in visitors coming on and all the rest. I reported it online last week, reported it online again last night, and then followed up this morning again with a member of staff, only to be told that it was inspected last week. There is a bigger issue than just a blocked gully. The road needs dug up, and more, complex work needs to be carried out, and there's different utility mains and all the rest going past there. So it's a bigger job of work. But that means now my report last week was inspected. Somebody went out to inspect the job again this morning. I took 10 minutes of a DFI staff member's time this morning on the phone, where no update comes when you report online. But similarly, you don't get as quick of a response, in my experience, if you report by email. So it's just to get a bit of clarity around what you think is maybe in an urgent situation, like Alderman Middleton raised, what is the best form of contact for yourselves? And just so that we're not duplicating, because that's now 2 reports online, an email and a phone call with a member of staff, to be told that on last week's inspection, there's more work needing done than just an emptying a gully. So that's the first point. Just to go back to Councillor Farrell's point around relining and all the rest, similarly, and I've raised this with the department again and again. I won't name the location because I don't want to get specific, but for 2 years, the same location being raised over and over again, to be told that it's with a contractor and they kind of do that work as and when they get into the area, or they might wait for a batch of work in the area. But if they haven't been in the area in over 2 years, I'd be asking more questions. And I know that they have, because 2 streets down the yellow box was repainted, but they didn't do the one that needs done 2 streets up. So it's just to flag that with these again. I understand that you release work out to contractors, but what oversight do you have, particularly when the likes of ourselves are getting back in contact to say that's still not done? I know it's with a contractor, but surely you have some level of oversight. So that's I leave it at that, Chair. It's just those 2 broad issues, but just again on behalf of our team to thank you and your staff for all the work that you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. From a comms point of view, we generally do tend to recommend that normal line of business communications are done through the NI Direct reporting online. However, any emergency or high priority issues that may wish to be raised and addressed in a shorter time frame than the usual standard customer charter of 15 days that we usually have, I would recommend contacting the section office. Following our presentation to council, there'll be a new updated contact sheet sent out to all members, and that will have lines to a central office, which will make sure that it's picked up, because too often I know that sometimes many of you may have the numbers of the guys on the ground, and sometimes if they're on annual leave or out on site, they may not pick up a phone call. So what we tend to try and do now is make sure it goes through our central offices, and then even if somebody isn't available, it can be allocated to somebody else, and make sure that these high priority or emergency call outs are addressed. So as I say, the preference is online, or by email, or if not online, then by email, but we would prefer online. And by email, again, I would send it to the central section office emails. There'll be emails included on the new contact sheet that we'll be sending out hopefully tomorrow or the next day. As I say, the section office is the best telephone number to contact in the event of emergency. And I appreciate that at this time of year, there are a number of high priority things, especially around flooding. And in circumstances like you outlined there a few moments ago, I think we definitely try to get out and facilitate clearing away of the drainage if we can. Obviously, in the circumstance that you mentioned, larger works are required, and that will take a bit of planning and perhaps a little bit of design. But if it's clearing gullies or removing detritus to allow water to exit the road to improve access, then we usually try to get out and facilitate that, especially in circumstances like what you mentioned there. From a relining point of view, I have to admit, we have had trouble over the preceding years with getting our contractors to complete white lining. Thankfully, we have a new contract let, and the initial feedback from the guys is that they're getting round the sites a lot better than our previous efforts. So we do have a monitoring. We have supervisors who go out and check the contractors' work. Now, I don't think we probably get round everything that they do, but we definitely spot check to make sure that they're doing what they have been tasked with doing. If there are particular areas that are a safety hazard, then they will be prioritised. So again, if there's a stop line or something like that missing, then those are the sorts of ones we would like to get out to first. And again, because the risk is higher on highly trafficked roads, we tend to go to the highly trafficked roads first and then make our way down to those, because the risk, because just the volume of people using them, the risk is lower. That's not to say that there is no risk or to belittle the risk there. There is a risk, and we're aware of that. We would like to get out and address it. But we need to take that incremental process of addressing them. That's okay. Is there anything else that you'd like to add with regards to our white lining?
No, just maybe for out of hours emergency contacts.
Yes.
It's probably TICC, I think it was the.
It will be to a central, our traffic information control centre for out of hours will be, and that will be included on the contact sheet that we send out as well.
You, Councillor Bowles?
Just very briefly, Chair, on the, I understand, I kind of preempted that the answer would be that it is best to report online. I suppose the issue that is what that is, if there is an issue, if it's not going to be sorted, if it is sorted, all well and good, you never follow it up again. And then in a similar, any similar instance to what I've raised, if it needs follow-up work or it needs, you know, it's not the job of the department to deal with it or anything else, when you report it online, you're not getting that information back to say, and whenever I went back on to check the reference code that I had, there was nothing for it, and the icon had been taken off because it had been inspected, but there was no information to say it's been inspected and this is the storyline. So it's just reporting online may be best and it may be more efficient for yourselves. And I suppose I know anyway, that's what I want to do, to try and make life easier for yourselves because you get so many. But if you're not getting the same information back, it kind of defeats the purpose, I suppose, whenever something's not being fixed.
Yeah, no, I appreciate where you're coming from. We have had that that issue raised previously centrally from other councillors and members of the public, that there's a lack of feedback with regards to the online reporting. We do try to update all of the thousands of issues that we do get in. In some cases, when a inspection is carried out and no additional work is required, you're probably right. Sometimes it isn't updated and then it's removed from the system. We are looking at trying to improve centrally. We're looking at trying to improve that system so that there is a greater feedback loop for people. And I know our digital services branch are actively looking at that and trying to improve the process.
Thank you, Daniel. The next person I have is Councillor Gay.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me in. I'm not a member of this committee, but thanks to Daniel and Alistair for coming in today and presenting the council. A couple of questions. I do agree a lot with what's been said before by all the other colleagues there in council. But on behalf of the Ulster Unionist Party, I'd like to thank yourselves and all your officers and staff for the work that they do. And I obviously know that your hands are tied a lot of times with the budget constraints and so on. But a few years ago, we were informed that I think the office staff that dealt with all the problems that we sent into them and other things was around 29 people. And they says then it had been cut to around 17 with people leaving for other jobs, that people retiring and so on. Currently, what is that staff? What is the numbers of that staff? Another thing being, obviously there, it was asked already about Lincoln Courts, and was it Alistair? Was it Alistair said that it was possibly they'd hope they started in December or January 26. Am I right in saying that? And then is Seymour Gardens included in that? Because I know they're both sort of around the same time, the asking of them. And I know use of processes and so on where you determine how these roads are sorted. But looking at a lot of roads that were sorted and are up the list more than Lincoln Courts and Seymour Gardens, I would say they're probably in all right shape compared to those two areas. The other thing, and I know I've sent that in the list, so I'll not keep this too long, but the other thing is obviously, and Councillor Riley has brought it up there about the Drumahoe traffic as well as Alderman Middleton. And basically, listen, I know that the bypass ain't going to happen anytime soon. So I agree with the chair there, what he was saying. And I think because of that, we need to look at ways that we can basically alleviate the traffic problem on Drumahoe at the minute. And the 30-mile-an-hour signs is one. We've already asked for speed ramps outside the school and along the Funcairn Road. And just signs were put up for that there. But one major problem is where people are actually cutting away from the main Glen Shane Road to avoid the traffic is Dally's Brae. And the fact that Dally's Brae has only a footpath on one side as far out as just at the back of Dally's Park, then it's just a road. That road is heavily covered with leaves and so on at this time of year. There's cars flying down there at 60 mile an hour. It's pitch black. There's school kids walking home along that road. Somebody is serious is going to get knocked down and injured or worse. And I know that they are looking at it for of ways that they can maybe curtail the traffic, speed ramps and so on like that. I would suggest that maybe an island like they have at the end of Woodside Road and the Strabane Road, just as you're entering the Govna Scale area there, that would slow the traffic going down the hill. Something that maybe could be looked at. But I'll give you an example. On Friday night past, the service bus actually went down it because the traffic was that bad on the main road. So the service bus actually cut off. They try and probably keep itself in the limited time that it has to lift up passengers and so on. But that's what we're faced with. And currently everybody's searching for resolutions for that there Glen Shane Road at the Drumahoe area. I think we're a long way off it. I always says move the traffic lights from where they are and make a proper junction there where the Glen Shane Drumahoe Road meets the Glen Shane Road. And it might alleviate the fact that people let flash people out, have to slow down. And then obviously this builds up until there's a massive traffic jam that leads back the crossroads at Irish Street and Woodburn. But again, thanks for coming in. And that's all I have to say at the minute, although I've sent you on a big list there as well. So thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. You mentioned staff numbers within our maintenance office in Crescent Road there. Currently have staff vacancies of around 15% there, and that actually compares relatively favourably against a staff vacancy rate of over 20% across the division. What I would say though is at the moment there's quite a lot of staff churn with promotion and recruitment boards, and we do have some quite new staff in our maintenance office, which means that while we have bums in seats essentially, we're training those guys up to be an effective engineer or inspector. There's also a number of recruitment competitions, as I say, where staff may gain promotion and be moved out of the section to areas which are seen as a high priority for staffing. So within the maintenance office, we're not too bad at the moment, although that can change very quickly with the recruitment and promotion competitions. The department as a whole has been trying repeatedly over the last number of years to recruit engineers to engineering positions across all section offices and all functions. And it is a challenging environment at the moment to achieve that. Unfortunately, the remuneration in the private sector is probably slightly better than what it is in government agencies at the minute. So recruiting engineers is definitely a challenge, and we've found that. So the focus has been recently on getting Skills Academy and apprentices and graduates in. And we've been taking in as many as the department can handle. And at the moment, the section office has 3 apprentices in it, helping to deliver the services that we deliver there. So while it is a challenging environment to keep staff numbers up, as a department, we are looking outside the box with things like the Skills Academy to get people in and get them trained up and get them effective. The other issue that you mentioned with regards to what appears to be rat running to avoid the traffic on the A6 there is definitely something that our traffic section can take a look at. You mentioned that they may already be aware and already thinking of introducing a couple of measures there, but I think we need to look at it holistically along that entire route into the city, because if we introduce traffic calming on one of those side roads, then you might find it just migrates to the next one. So there is a body of work there to analyse that, and I'll certainly be getting in touch with my network development team to make sure that that's been taken forward.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you. Just one, sorry, Chair, for just the Lincoln Court Seymour Gardens one. What was the sort of the expected dates where it would be started in that?
Councillor, Lincoln Courts is expected to start at the end of this year, December, for some of the civils works, the curbs and drainage and such.
Yeah.
With possibly the resurfacing done next year.
Mm-hmm.
And Seymour Gardens probably starting next year as well.
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
Of the year.
Thanks for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gay. The next person to speak, Councillor Hargan.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for coming in today. And on behalf of People Before Profit, I want to thank the workforce at DFI for the work that you do day in and day out, because it is a mammoth task to keep our roads infrastructure working and functioning. And if it didn't, nothing really would happen here. And it's also, the maintenance is a huge challenge as well, so really appreciate that. I suppose the first thing you started out with, that the limited service policy would continue, is disappointing. And the reason why that's disappointing is obvious, because there's a cost in terms of the damage to cars and vehicles, because I know that there's probably been more claims put in as a result of that. And then there's more fixing to do, because the problem gets worse in a lot of ways. And then in terms of the emphasis on active travel, if we want people on bicycles, we need to actually have roads that you can cycle on, and too many roads, as we know, are not fit for that purpose and are dangerous. So if you could actually say what it would take to end that policy, because I think that would be important. And I say that in relation to looking at the budgets, because you've outlined that there's been increases for 25, 26. To me, they don't look too significant in terms of the budget increases. So I would appreciate your thoughts on that, because we've had underfunding for many, many years, and standstill budgets or cuts because of standstill budget because of inflation. And we all know that there's been huge costs in terms of inflation. So if you can speak a wee bit about the actual budget, and then in relation to the capital budget, it does talk about that increase, which I think was 64 million, would allow us to address regional imbalance a bit more. And I appreciate that regional imbalance is included, but how does an extra 64 million allow you to do more in terms of regional balancing out, regional spend, and what does that actually look like? And then the last one is just about the winter service plan. So, and if you could maybe talk about it, that's already in place because it starts mid-October and runs to mid-April. And I wonder if there's any lessons from last year or from previous years in terms of your thinking around how to make sure that we do our best if there is extreme weather. And I'm just looking at the cost of that as well, because it looks like it's between 7 and 10 million a year. And that, I mean, it's 300 staff on standby every night, I would presume, from mid-October through to mid-April. And then something is, I think it's 140 gritters on standby as well. So the 85,000 per night that's referenced in the report, is that a spend every night, even if, you know, there's relatively mild weather? Could you just say a bit about how that works in terms of the preparation, or when the service isn't actually needed? How does it work, and how does that impact the costs? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. The limited service you mentioned, and the disappointment that it continued this year, the additional resource that was in the overall package or budget given to the department that is mentioned in the forward includes obviously our arm's length bodies and all aspects of the Department of Infrastructure's work. Within the maintenance and road reconstruction budget that we receive, there was some additional resource to allow us to carry out additional services that sit slightly outside of the limited service maintenance policy. So things like previously we wouldn't have been washing signs. So this year the additional budget allowed us to wash some signs. There's also a number of elements within the limited service policy that we will do if we have the budget available. And there'll probably more of that this year, which included the likes of washing of signs and additional road marking as well. So that probably covers a lot of the additional resource that we received in the division. From a capital point of view, the capital resurfacing budget was significantly less in the opening budget than we received last year, which was around 89 or 86 million pounds. This year it was 68 million pounds. And that's reflected in probably a lower number of roads being resurfaced in this current financial year. That's not to say that additional funding may not be available through monitoring rounds, and we're hopeful that we will be successful in bids in those. And we've recently put in bids for additional resurfacing monies for the upcoming monitoring round. So we remain hopeful that we'll get extra there. The winter service is around £85,000 a night. You mentioned that's when there's a call out. So that's when all of our gritters are out doing we approximately do around 7,000 kilometres of roadway each time that we're called out for winter service, and that's about the same as going from Belfast to Moscow and back. So it's a significant amount of winter service mileage covered by that, and you've probably heard the stats before that we cover 28% of the road network, and that covers around 80% of the travelling public who use our roads. And you're right, it is around 7 to 10 million pounds per year, depending on how severe the winter is. There has been talk previously about increasing the gritting schedule, the roads that we do cover. But unfortunately, the existing gritting schedule was agreed by the executive. So I think if any significant increase to that gritting schedule would probably need to go through that because of the drain it has on our resource budget. That's not to say small areas or slight deviations from the existing isn't possible. And we do have the secondary gritting schedule, of course, that allows us to go down to connect schools and any sort of unusual activities that we try to facilitate for communities, such as funerals, on the secondary gritting schedule. So a full schedule is planned for this year, and we have our gritter drivers and our external drivers in place to carry that out, certainly in Western Division.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Councillor Harkin. The next person to speak, Councillor Kerrigan, please.
Thank you very much, Chair, for allowing me in, and I do thank Daniel and Alistair for coming in. And apologies, Alistair, I didn't get down to see you today, so I'm online. But I know you've went through a lot of information already, and again, very much appreciated for all the works that you've done there, and the amount of positives that you have put in your report. You know, and I could be parochial in regards to the various items throughout the day, DA, and particularly even the Kathleen Road, and even the enforcement case, and eventually getting sorted out at Riverview Manor in Castleberg, and there's a lot of positives on it there, and of course, unfortunately, a day like this is where you're getting hammered with maybe a few of the negatives there on it. But just a couple of points in trying to keep them more on the macro rather than the micro here in this is a query there in regards to the surface dressing, and particularly from the rural end. Is that surface dressing effectively ceased now? Because I remember speaking to some of the staff that effectively what I'm referring to in that is what we'd call sort of that loose stones that's put over some of those particularly minor roads, the C roads and that, you know, or the U roads, I should say. You know, I was told that effectively was coming to an end in that form, and I'm just querying in that end. You've mentioned the grass cutting. Grass cutting's always a gripe, and the rural end, particularly as regards that it's not done often enough, and it's not. And I know they're effectively doing rightly to get it cut once, and people are not happy with the way it's cut, and that'll be a particular one that you will get in regards to not going in far enough, or they're cutting along the bottom, and the ben weeds are coming down over it, and that's always an issue. And I know I do believe, from my information, particularly in the West Tyrone sort of end of things. I don't believe that DFI that's hired out to contractors now. They no longer have the equipment. I was told that they disposed of the equipment that they had for doing that work internally. That's a second point there. There's an ongoing wee issue there in regards to some maintenance of some housing developments effectively, in regards to some of the pavements, in regards to some of the grounds in it, and I know that just is a wee bit that I find that sometimes councillors are passed a wee bit colour to post as to who's looking about an area. Some of the areas inside settlement limits, council looks about. Some of it is DFI, some of it is maybe housing executive properties, some of that are maybe some of the housing associations, and there's just a wee bit of I don't know, that's maybe just a comment, but I do know there was a wee bit of to and fro as who's responsible for the maintenance of this, or who's responsible for the maintenance of that. That might be just one for a conversation for another day, but there is that wee issues that you do get in regards to housing development. There's a path around the back of these houses. Who's meant to be maintaining it? You know, so that's just a wee point. And a couple of quick points then. In regards to staff, you did mention staff, and you mentioned staff that were effectively in based in a centre. Am I correct, or maybe I'm wrong? There was always a statement in regards to the old western end in regards to what was Castleberg, Staban and Plumbridge, as there had been the 3 depots there, and there was the figure bandied about that there had been 30 staff at a time between those 3 sites, and now effectively it's only the 1 site in Staban. But would that be correct to state that you're down to 7 staff who are actually physically out on the ground in that covering that area now? I know there's a lot of stuff is put out to third-party contractors for a lot of work, but I'm just wondering, are the numbers down to 7 from 30 at a time? Maybe that's, as I say, that might not necessarily, 30 may no longer be the figure you should have, but I thought there was actually 7 that were physically out. There may be a few off that are on long-term sick and different items, but that's one. And then I think I have 2 final points for I want to try and be quick. Page 41 of your pack in regards to public liability claims, and you've mentioned there sort of 3 figures there. Claims received is 187, claims settled is 161, and then claims rejected are 93. Now, we're not comparing the same period as far as I see. Some of those claims settled or rejected are maybe covering a different period from the claims actually received. But I'm just wondering, maybe I have missed it there when I've been looking at the pack. Do you have a figure for how much has been paid out in regards to the claim settled? And just to see, is it a significant figure in regards to your budget, in regards to, is there a way, and what the majority of those claims have been relating to, and regard if they're all basically to do with potholes, where I'm coming from, is that going to something, well, if we spent X amount of pounds on claims to do with these potholes, are then we going to refocus to try and deal with potholes to reduce the claims? But as I say, I maybe I've missed it, but I'm just wondering in regards to that numerically, how much has been paid out on those settlements, just as a total figure. And my last point, and I'll sit down and be brief. in regards to your winter programme, the gritting and the placing the grit in the rural area, because that's one that we will, if we do get a coil snap in, you know, and I respect that the staff are flat out, but whenever you have people looking for grit, and as the man says, when the frost is out there and the grit lorry lands a week later, you know, and we be looking for to try and get the grit, and even if it could be taken on board, and I've raised it and I've asked it before, and the like of Castledaird or the like of some of these Newton Stewart, the like of Castledaird, if a load of grit could be tipped out beside the sandbag container at the bridge, you know, it leaves that some people can come and lift their own and take it. I know there's always a potential of it being abused, but if there's not the staff to go out and replenish the grit piles, I think it has to be genuinely thought of as an option, because, you know, you get people contacting us saying about, I've no grit, that we've already used the grit and this cold spell's lasting for a week or whatever it is. You know, it's just, that's all right if it's a day, you know, but it's just that wee thing. But I'm just being preemptive in that regard. But I think we have to be a wee bit more proactive in regards to the provision of the grit. You know, if we can't get the, because they say, I being a rural councillor in the Castledairg area, and the wider that rural end, it's the grit piles today. So that's just a couple of points there. But again, thank you very much for the work that you do. But I just try to keep my points more broad than narrow. Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you. With regards to surface dressing, the surface dressing operation requires the road temperature to be of a certain temperature, so it's only ever carried out during the summer or very early autumn months, where the road temperature remains high and suitable for surface dressing. This year, our surface dressing operation was probably completed before September, I would have thought, Alistair, in this area. So while it has ceased for this year, it will be started again next year during the summer. In previous years, I'm not sure it was the case in the Derry City and Strabane area, but our surface dressing would have been carried out in a mixture of internal and external contractors. Last year, we awarded a contract externally for the entire Derry City and Strabane area and Fermanagh and Omagh area. So it's now carried out only by our external contractors. With regards to grass cutting, a lot of the operatives that would have been involved in our previous surface dressing operations are now carrying out grass cutting internally. So previously we would have had our external operators carrying out some of our grass cutting, and that's almost exclusively carried out internally now. And that's how we're probably going to proceed in the future as well. I take your point with regards to some of the rural roads and the quality of grass cutting. I would hope this year, with it being bought internally, certainly some of the feedback I've been getting has been that the quality of the work has improved. There may be areas where it hasn't, but if there are issues with the quality of the work that we carried out, I would be happy to raise them and address them. With regards to the maintenance of roads and footways in housing developments, the department has a very clear schedule of adopted roads that was handed over to the department when responsibility for roads and footpaths passed from local councils or local authorities to the department. So we do have fairly good maps of what we are responsible for. And there may, as you say, be some discussions around what's NIHE or other third-party ownership. But the department is generally fairly clear with what we maintain. We have an online mapping system that allows us to check it fairly quickly. I would say that back alleyways were mentioned, and the vast majority of those are unlikely to be adopted by DFI roads because we tend to certainly agree to adopt through routes, essentially, which are used by pedestrians and the general public rather than to access the rear of properties. That's not to say that we don't have some. Some of them did pass to us as part of that process I mentioned earlier. But again, we have very good maps that indicate what ones are our responsibility and adopted and what ones are either the homeowners unadopted or NIHE or other third parties. With regards to the comments about staffing, it's my understanding you're referring to our operations and maintenance teams, the guys who go out and carry out the physical work on the ground. That is a separate directorate to myself, but I can certainly follow up and get the accurate staff numbers for you and come back to you with those details from my colleagues in O&M. And similarly, the claims with regards to whether the claims are related to pothole defects, I can talk to my claims unit and again come back to you with details of that. I know we publish on an annual basis what the public liability claims the department have been exposed to. I'm not sure it goes into specifics around which are potholes and which are other claims, but I can certainly ask our claims unit if that information is available, and I can come back to you if that's okay. And finally, the grit piles and gritting in rural areas. We're starting to put out our grit piles this week. We have been monitoring. We are currently within the designated winter service period, and we have been monitoring the nighttime temperatures to make sure that we get out or try to get out ahead of any initial frosts. And we're certainly getting out this week and starting in the Derry City and Strabane area, council area, with our grit piles this week. Across the area, not just here, but across all areas, we generally have around 58,000 grit piles that we put out for self-help, and we can tend to put out grit piles where they've always been put out historically this year.
Thank you very much for that. I'll follow up just with an email or whatever, but no, I'm content enough for the questions, for I know I've been sort of specific and I don't expect you with the detail and everything. But thank you very much, Daniel. Thank you, Alistair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kerrigan. My next person is Councillor Cusack.
Thank you, Chair. As you know, I'm not a member of this committee, but the majority of my work, like my fellow council colleagues, involves DFI issues. So I welcome the opportunity to be able to speak and address some of those concerns. Daniel, Alistair, thank you for coming today, and I'm not expecting a lengthy reply, but I just wanted to highlight a few issues, and if that could be reviewed, I'd appreciate that. So basically my queries would be regarding DFI's operational strategy when dealing with repairs and defects. For example, white lines, which I know we've already touched on a number of times, and potholes. Obviously, we've discussed at length the budget constraints, and we're all aware of that and sympathetic to that. But my theory, my thinking is surely, the budget is being put under more pressure when, problems such as deep potholes, white lines, and these defects, which are all in a similar, the same area, are being addressed separately as opposed to at the same time. For example, you may be familiar with ongoing issues with potholes on the Northland Road, particularly outside St Mary's School, and the amount of times I saw one filled, and then a few days later the next one filled, and then a week later another one filled, and then by that stage the one that had been filled initially became a pothole again. So there's, I think, two issues there. Issue of why couldn't they've all been done at once? Would that not have been more economical? And the quality of the actual materials being used, that they're being washed away. So that's saying a stitch in time saves 9. Why are they not being addressed with better quality materials and in a timely manner? With regards to the white lines, I'm glad to hear that you've got new contractors on board, because what I've witnessed is, I don't know how you can monitor this or if you monitored, particularly in Springtown Road. I've got a wee development here off the Springtown Road. It's got 10 houses in it. There's not much traffic in and out, but their white lines were painted. They didn't have much of an issue, to be honest. Across the street, where there's about 110 houses, I've been banging on for about 2.5 years, constantly asked. They've got no lines at all. And why they couldn't have been done simultaneously. I mean, a crew got out. There were about 7 guys, painted these. I watched them do it, painted the lines, and while directly across from them, a couple of meters away, was being completely ignored. So I don't know what systems you have for, you know, checking that and monitoring it, and why they couldn't have been done at the same time? Because I don't know, are contractors paid by job, or are they just, you know, on the books and they get a set fee? Because surely that's not very cost effective, or it's quite inefficient basically. But I say, if your new contractors can deal with that, and I know Councillor Boggs touched on this as well too, that would be great to know. My final point would be, you know, traffic management issues. I'm sure you're aware of the issue in and around the McGee area, Rosemount Park Avenue. Traffic chaos constantly. Now it's not just, you know, students or residents, you know, it's local people who go through that area to get home. Something has to be done about that. I know it was addressed maybe about 10, 11 years ago, but there has to be a serious heads together and some kind of a solution found, because it just can't cope. The area just cannot cope, and people are waiting. For example, yesterday, people were trying to move 5 meters, and it took them 25 minutes to do that. So appreciate your time, and I really, really appreciate all the help that myself and my constituents have had to date from the staff and DFI. You have been really good at dealing with various issues, but it would be nice to find out if there's ways that you can be more cost effective, so money can be addressed where it needs to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cusack.
Thank you, Councillor. Just with regards to the first point made with regards to potholes and the maintenance, there is an ongoing, and I probably should have mentioned it in my response to some of the queries earlier, there is an ongoing maintenance strategy being examined by the department to see whether there is a more effective way to use the limited budget that we have to address some of the issues that you raise. Certainly within our current limited service, I have encouraged our section officers and their contractors to address potholes that are adjacent to each other. One may meet the criteria and the other not. If they're next to each other, I would hope that they would, and I would have encouraged them in the past to address both of them if they're in the area. The maintenance strategy that I mentioned earlier is looking at route interventions. So instead of only looking at the potholes that meet the criteria, we tackle all potholes on a route. Now, obviously, that'll have consequences on the network elsewhere. So what you may find in that case is that the potholes along a route are all looked at, but the route isn't looked at again for a significant period of time. So there are benefits and disadvantages to the process that we have at the minute, and there are probably benefits and disadvantages that need to be looked at with regards to the maintenance strategy optioneering that's going on at the moment. But that may address some of the issues that you've raised with regards to some potholes being filled and other potholes not being filled. Hopefully the results of that maintenance strategy outcome will be in the new year, and we'll see whether that pilot projects within certain divisional areas will go ahead. With regards to the quality of repairs, within our contracts, we do have a very clear specification for the refilling and process for the refilling of potholes. If there are ones that are being plucked out within a short period of time, then there are measures within the contracts that allow us to censure the contractors with regards to the performance, and we wouldn't be behind the wall about addressing that. But if there are ones in particular, then if you flag them up to our inspectors or our local section officers, they'll be able to focus on those and make sure that they're carried out correctly in the future. With regards to the white lines on the Springtown Road and the adjacent housing developments, I'm not familiar with that particular one, but I would like to check to see whether the larger development that you mentioned is adopted, because if it's not adopted, then the department has no legal requirement.
It's about 30 years old. It's definitely adopted. Yeah.
Okay. I know, then we can certainly look into that. And if it does meet our criteria for intervention, then we'll be back in that area with our new white lining contractor in the future, and it may be on that schedule. With regards to how the contractors are paid, they're not paid a flat rate. I can confirm that there is a very clear schedule of rates that look at the volume of work that's carried out, the length of lines and the type of lines. So they're paid on the basis of work completed, not on the basis of jobs or any other flat rate. And finally, the traffic management issues in the McGee University area. It's an area that we're actively engaged with the university and local residents at the moment through a number of workshops and presentations and also it's been an area that the minister has confirmed is being considered for residents parking. So there's conversations around residents parking to help local residents with regards to some of the traffic issues that they're having around there. And then the consultation that we're carrying out at the minute isn't limited to residents parking either. It also looks at other traffic management measures within the area, which includes the recent corner radius. The name of the road escapes me, up next to the university there, that's been carried out to improve traffic flow and safety of pedestrians in that area. But there is residents parking, as I mentioned, required for that area. At the minute, we're only in the preliminary discussions because we require the residents parking guidance policy to be published, which is imminent in the coming weeks and months. So once that's been published, we'll be able to take that forward formally, rather than the informal discussions we've been having and consultations we've been having with residents and local stakeholders, including the PSNI and Parking Enforcement Unit.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Cusack. Thank you, Daniel. The last but not least, Councillor Hussey.
Thank you, Chair, and my apologies for not being with you in person today. Welcome to the delegation. I suppose the first point is to thank you for all the work that is done, and then we'll move on to the rest of my contribution. The A5 scenario, where you're presently at the statutory procedure stage, as I understand it, because of the intervention with regard to the environmental issues, and that is ongoing. And we understand fully the frustration that exists for the residents along that particular route. That has been well publicised. There's also another issue that evolves there, and that is the frustration that exists for those landowners that the department are engaging with. And indeed, I have had several complaints of a lack of engagement with landowners, and the main one came to me actually via a landowner who is supportive of the scheme, doesn't have an issue, but it's the lack of engagement as to what's actually happening. So I suppose one of my questions will be, since the halt in procedure, what engagement has there been with landowners, just to keep them up to speed as to where they're at and what the potentials are going forward. With regard to structures, we have a tremendous list of locations where, and I'm particularly thinking in terms of bridges here, where work will be undertaken, and that's appreciated, whether it's parapet work. I don't know how much actual structural work there may be there, but you will obviously have done assessment of the need for structural work to be done on various bridges throughout our area. And there are quite a few, particularly in our Derg area, of the older type bridges. We're all very mindful of the Kilray scenario. And I suppose, can you give us a guarantee that some of our bridges are not going to reach that stage where communities could be cut off because of delay in attending to bridge works that have been identified going forward? With regard to improvement works, resurfacing carriageways and footpaths, I want to look at one in particular, and that is with regard to Dergville in Castlederg. And I see it's planned that there will be resurfacing of the carriageway and footpaths. There has been an issue within that particular estate with regard to the speed bumps and traffic calming within that small estate, whereby there's a sign to say there's speed bumps, but there aren't actually speed bumps. So I suppose the question is, when the resurfacing and carriage work of the carriageway and footpaths is undertaken, will proper speed pumps, traffic calming be included within that going forward? Also, with regard to the grit piles, I'm presuming that includes the yellow box scenario, that they will all be inspected and refilled in good time. I was delighted to hear that you'd received additional monies, and some of that had been used with regard to washing of signs. And it is a constant observation and indeed complaint that I would get about signs that just are not visible, not necessarily just via dirt and grime on signs, but also overgrowth. So, with regard to signage maintenance going forward, is there a defined program of signage maintenance to ensure that signage is always visible in the interest of road safety and road users in general going forward? As other colleagues have mentioned there, I welcome the enforcement which has taken place with regard to Riverview Manor, and that has had a knock-on effect for our council. And I welcome that our council staff have been able to take forward the issue of bin collections, etc., in the particular estate. Extremely welcome. Again, I welcome the legislation coming into place with regard to the 20 mile per hour part-time at a couple of schools in our own area, Victoria Bridge, Kesselderk High School. But I just wonder, will there be another phase? Because along the B72 that these two schools exist on, there's also Kiln Primary School, which is on exactly the same road and faces the exact same issues. And I cannot for the life of me understand why it has not yet been included in the part-time 20 mile per hour scheme. Could you clarify? I thought I heard you say to Alderman Kerrigan there that all grass cutting has now been internalised. Can you clarify if that is in fact so? And my final point, Chair, with your permission, drainage works. And again, I'm going to refer to a specific location because this has been going on ongoing for years. It's the junction of Ballylennon Road and Drumquin Road, Castlederg. Constantly road ponding on that main road, Drumquin Road. And not alone ponding at that junction, but ponding on either side of the junction. And it is a road safety issue without doubt. Given that this situation has been there for many years, has been reported online, etc., are there any plans to finally eradicate the issue of ponding at that particular location? Thank you for your time, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hussey.
Thank you. Just with regards to the A5, the engagement with landowners, the landowners you're referring to are within the new buildings to Strabane area. Is that correct, Councillor Hussey?
No, it would be in particular in the Ardstraw area.
Right. Well, I know the focus at the minute, following the vesting orders for two sections of the A5, has been on engaging with the landowners and returning the land to the landowners along the sections where we were moving forward following the original PAC ruling back in last year. I will have to confer with my colleagues in the strategic route improvement scheme with regards to engagement with other landowners along the route and come back to you on that. With regards to structures, the department has a very clear inspection schedule for the inspection of structures and bridges, and it was that inspection process that flagged up the issue that has been highlighted. our structures, unless they're under special measures, are inspected on a 2-yearly basis for a general inspection and on a 6-yearly basis for a principal inspection. And that's consistent with the standards for across the all devolved institutions and the UK. From our inspections, we certainly don't have any that are currently in the same position as Kilray Bridge. But as you know, during flooding events, small defects can escalate very quickly, as we saw during the 2007 flooding events, when we lost a number of bridges in the northwest. So while I'm confident that the inspections haven't identified anything that place any of those structures at immediate risk, I would caveat that with the fact that flooding events and scour of any supports, abutments or piers within the flow are very vulnerable to those particular events and can escalate very quickly. So I don't know whether that 100% answers your question. I hope it provides some certain amount of comfort that we have a well-established inspection process that helps flag up these issues. I know in Kilray, a lot of the diversion route moves through Mid Ulster and Western Division, which I'm responsible for, and that the team who are designing the strengthening of the wing walls is working as fast as they can to try and get that open prior to Christmas, at least for small vehicles and non-HGVs. With regards to resurfacing, Alistair, I might ask the question, are you aware of whether the speed humps will be?
Yeah, the resurfacing for Digwood is due to start hopefully at the end of this year, the civils work, and that's the footway and the carriageway. I need to check on the traffic calming humps there. If it's saying there, I presume there was traffic calming at some point, and if there was, that consultation would have been done before, and we can just replace what was there previously. But I'll check with our traffic team on the humps.
I can confirm that the salt boxes as well as the grit piles are part of the schedule of providing grit in rural and urban areas. So the yellow boxes will be filled as part of the process. With regards to signs and overgrowth, if there are safety issues, then the department do have powers to go in and cut third-party hedgerows and overgrowth to ensure the safety of road users. Ultimately, the hedges are not owned by the department, and it is generally, if it's blocking sightlines and things like that, it is the owner of those hedgerows who are ultimately responsible for keeping them clear. But the department do have powers to go in and carry out works and seek to be recompensed. So yes, there is a method for us to address those. The 20 mile per hour at schools, there's currently no funding allocated for this process next year, to my knowledge, but that's not to say that I know the aspiration for the minister is to cover a lot of the schools that there was no budget this year to cover. And the minister allocated additional budget this year so we could address additional schools, up to 40 schools across the northern area, the Northern Ireland and the north. So the aspiration is there to continue to roll out this in further tranches. But as of yet, I haven't received confirmation of further tranches. And finally, I missed the roads there that you mentioned in Castledurg that were subject to flooding, and that's certainly, but it's certainly, I think Alistair took it down there, so we'll seek to address it. Okay.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Councillor Hussey.
Chair, sorry, there was clarification. Is all grass cutting now internal within the department?
Sorry, I'm afraid I misspoke slightly earlier. In some of the council areas I'm responsible for, it is, but in Derry City and Strabane District Council, there is still some grass cutting carried out by our external contractor and by our internal.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hussey. Thank you, Daniel. And from everybody here, thank you so much, Daniel and Alistair, for coming on. As you see, everybody's responses, this is a very big topic, as you know, and is close to everybody's heart. Every one of us are phoned every day with problems, and we rely on yourselves. And on a personal note, I work very close. The four people I work very close with is Declan, Dermot, Sam, and Brian, and I can only compliment the work. And I know there's a lot of other people around them that does work as well. And on a personal level, I can only thank the work that I get done, you know, and thank everybody for doing it. And thank you so much for coming on today. Folks, we're going to take a 10-minute comfort break now straight away. We'll start off again. The next item is chairperson's business. I've one item myself. So been asked that there's been 4 meetings going on this week from a group called the Gallerin and the CAJ around community engagement, around a community inquiry. So there was a meeting in Eglinton, a meeting in Strathroy last night. There's a meeting in Drumahoe tonight, and there's a meeting in Cultureland tomorrow night. I went very sceptical to the meeting, and I was very impressed by the whole approach about a community inquiry. So much so, I would like to propose that they come in and give a presentation to yourselves in the ENR committee. I think it will give everybody a chance to see what they're saying and what they're trying to do. So that's a proposal that I would like to give. Okay. Sorry, Councillor Harkin, you want to come on?
Thank you, Chair, and that's a great proposal, and I'm glad there was a few people ready to second it. Yeah, look, like yourself, I attended the opening meeting that will kick off the community inquiry into the illegal dump at my boy, and there was a really good turnout in Eglinton, and I thought there was a lot of challenge and questions to the organisations that are conducting the inquiry, and they're at the point now where they're really just gathering evidence. And I know that there was a meeting last night in Strathfoyle. There's another, as you said, in Drumahoe tonight. And then tomorrow, I'm expecting that there's going to be a really good turnout for the meeting at the Culterland. And I think that they're just encouraging people to come along to hear what they're doing so that they can explain what they're doing and talk about how the community can actually be involved. I think if they get the opportunity to come into council, that would be excellent, because I think, look, it is very frustrating that there's never been a independent public inquiry about the Maboy dump and the other illegal dumps right across the north, as the Assembly agreed back in 2014. And this doesn't replace that, but it will play a role in trying to hold those who are accountable for the Maboy dump accountable. And it will also help to put a bit of pressure on Stormont and others who have a responsibility to carry out a proper public inquiry, so we can understand how this happened, to make sure that there is a clean-up of all the illegal dumps across the north, and so to make sure it never happens again. So, great proposal, Chair.
Councillor Harkin, Councillor McGinley.
Gormega, Chair, and just on this, I'm just conscious that in terms of our deputations, our schedules can be quite full within ENR and other council committees. Is it possible that it could be done as a briefing that's open to all members, as opposed to needing to come in through a formal committee process? It might allow it to happen that wee bit quicker.
What would be ourselves to decide? What does everybody think?
Chair, if I can come in briefly, members know my view on deputations coming into committee, and I fully support the suggestion that this could be done out of committee. Open to all members, whether it be a special council meeting, if required, to actually entail that to happen. And I don't know who was speaking there. Was it Shauna?
No, it was me, Emma, Derek.
Sorry, Emma. If it's a proposal, I'll happily second it.
It's just we've had briefings from other groups, such as the 100% Redress Party, etc., and they were able to be organised that wee bit quicker and more efficiently and open to all members, rather than it being needing to come on through a scheduled deputation. So, in the interest of that, I would suggest that we should plan it in that manner.
Thank you, Councillor McGinley, Councillor Jose. I have no problem. If we want to propose a workshop, that they come on, they all know in their workshop, they all members. I have no problem with that. Councillor Donnelly, you want to come on?
Yeah, Chair, I think I agree with Councillor McGinley, and along the lines of a special council meeting. You know, I think it's important that the public hear, you know, the issues around this and from that particular angle. So I think, you know, whilst workshops are very important, I also think that this needs to be going out to the public, and I'm happy to support or endorse or second if it's needed, Councillor McGinley's proposal.
Sorry, my proposal wasn't for a special council meeting. So I just think it needs, if it's for elected members, if this group have been doing public meetings, the public will be engaged in that as well. If this is specific for elected members, then there's no reason it shouldn't just be a briefing or a workshop as suggested by the chair.
I think then the approach is maybe a briefing where we bring the Gallerin and the CAG and all members and brief what they want to do, and then that may lead to a special council meeting or whatever. So I think the fact is it's just to get the Gallerin and the CAG and they tell us what this community inquiry entails. Councillor O'Reilly, you wanted to come in?
Chair, happy with the direction of travel in that respect then for maybe that state of a workshop first of all, and off the back of that, absolutely a special full council if needs to be. You know, I think, but let's get them in to hear what they have to say in a setting where elected members can engage positively with them, and then there's certainly no objection to doing a special full council if needed.
I have no problem with anything, but sorry, Connor, you want to come in?
Chair, just the process around organising a special council meeting might take some time, given the calendar, schedule of meetings and so on. So it may be, and it's not entirely at the member's discretion, to organise a briefing where the gathering come and present to all members. That may lead in turn that members can decide on another process or a proposal to come forward, or some further recommendation that may require a council meeting or some other kind of presentation to council or committee. But a briefing could be organised quite soon, as opposed to depending on the calendar schedule of meetings to try and get a special council meeting and given the time of year and so on.
Thank you, Chair, and again, thank you for putting this on the agenda, because I think it's good that we're talking about it, and I think that the organisations that you've mentioned will appreciate it. Look, I mean, councillors can attend the public meetings that are happening this week, and a number of us has, because I've seen people at them. So I think that the value for the organisations that take the time to come to the council, I think a briefing would be useful. But I think what this is about is it's about the opportunity to have a public discussion with the council, and it's for councillors obviously, but it also is for if any proposals come out of that, it's also for the public to be able to see the discussion between the councillors and the organisations involved. I think we all know as councillors what's at stake here. It's about that we all know the importance of Maboy and getting it cleaned up and the remediation. We also know that the council supports the call for a public inquiry that was agreed but has never happened, and that part of the reason why the community inquiry is happening is precisely because that's never taken place. So it seems to me that, you know, I think a briefing would be fine, but I also think that a public or a deputation is the way to go. I appreciate what Connor's saying, but this is a very important issue for the city, and it's not one organisation. It's maybe, I think it's 5 organisations that are involved in putting it together. I'm not on this committee, so I can't make a proposal, as people know. But that would be my feeling about it in terms of where we should head. Thank you, Chair.
Right, folks, because there's 2 proposals on, so we're going to have to vote, you know, so the first proposal is they come in for deposition into the council or into the committee or special council meeting. But the second one is that we have a briefing and they come into the briefing, and from that we schedule a special council meeting or whatever. So the first one,
The briefing.
the Councillor McGinley proposed debriefing. So we'll vote on that there first of all. Sorry, Councillor McGinley, you want to come back in?
I was just going to say that is it required for a vote if we've agreed already to go for a briefing, and if there's a proposal to come out of that, then we'll move at that stage. But do we require a vote, or are people in general agreement with that? Because that seems to be the general conversation, that if it's required coming out of the briefing, then that's something that we'll consider at that stage.
Chair, happy to.
Councillor McGinley, right?
Chair, it's my understanding that your proposal to bring it into the committee meeting was the first one on. That's my understanding of what I've heard.
That is correct. So the first proposal is to bring them into the deposition into the committee, ENR. Are we happy with that? Do we go for a vote for that?
That's the proposal.
We need to go to a vote, and it was seconded by Councillor Riley, and we need to go to a vote. So Connor can take us through a vote. Sorry, Councillor Farrell, go ahead.
Just to seek some clarity, I think everybody wants to hear from these groups. Everybody wants to see a resolution to the issue at my boy. My question is, I have no issue with them coming and presenting the committee, but in terms of timescales, how long feasibly is that going to take? Is it going to be January, February, March? So in terms of urgency, would it be better to get something more informal arranged instead of waiting potentially a considerable length of time? So I do understand that the chair's proposal was first. I understand that Councillor McGinley's was second. I think everybody supports them coming to committee, but then if we vote that, does that mean we can't have a briefing? So a common sense approach, I would imagine, is if we can get them on for a briefing with a view to potentially having either a special ENR or special council meeting at some stage in the near future.
I'm quite happy them to step back from my proposal and to allow them on for a briefing. I don't want to hold it up. I want these people in to talk to us and to get their point of view across. So I'm quite happy to propose that we have a briefing for now on the fact that they will be on a further time to be able to come in for deposition. Sorry, Councillor Boyle.
Yeah, just a quick question for you, Chair. Are you withdrawing your proposal?
We'll withdraw my.
Thank you.
For the,
So we'll be moving to Council McGinley's proposal then?
yes. Councillor McGinley had a seconder. Councillor Boggs. Everybody's happy with that now that we go for that proposal. Thank you.
Chair.
Sorry, who was that?
It's myself, Chair, on Hussey, online. With your permission, on a very similar issue, but not quite as large an issue. I have been approached by representatives from Bonsglen Environmental Group with concerns about environmental destruction in an area of outstanding natural beauty within the curtilage of their concerns. And I wonder, could the same sort of arrangement be allowed for them to come in and make a presentation as to their concerns on the environmental damage that they see being done within their area of remit? If that were possible, just a quick briefing from that group, I think it'd be worthwhile hearing from them. They're outside my electoral area, but I have been approached on the issue. And apparently it's an issue that council have been looking at.
So, Hussey, are you proposing for a briefing?
I propose a short briefing from that group, if it's permissible, yes.
Okay, Councillor.
Chair, just for clarity, maybe officers will have a better idea. Did we not deal with this at full council? Where we agreed to bring the same group in? Maybe Alderman Hussey's dealing with a separate issue, but I thought we had agreed that group would come to the relevant committee after a proposal full council.
Chair, it's my understanding that a meeting is to be organised with that group at a point, and maybe that will address Alderman Hussey's position with regard to, but that meeting is to be organised following discussions with full council.
Chair, for clarification, is that a meeting to be held with them somewhere rather than them coming in to make their presentation? Is that correct?
I don't have the full details to hand, but I'm happy to get it and then to share it and bring it back to members.
In that case, Chair, I'll hold on that. It's just that I had been approached this week with concerns on a matter. As I say, it's outside my electoral area, and I'm not fully over all of the issues, but it is an environmental issue that they have concerns about. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor or Alderman Hussey.
Yeah, just to clarify, a meeting is to be arranged with the group to discuss their concerns. Thanks, Chair.
Alderman Middleton.
Well, thanks, Chair. I was only going to say what Councillor Boggs said. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Middleton. Councillor Raymond Barr.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me there?
Yes, we do.
I'm not a member of this committee, but I had proposed at full council the last meeting that the residents of Bonsglen, the environmental group, be granted a meeting, and at the moment I'm still waiting confirmation on that. It was raised during Chair's business at the last council meeting. Thank you.
The meeting is to happen, so thank you, Councillor Barr. I have two more chair business items. Councillor Riley.
Thanks, Chair. I have two items, I think it indicated. The first one, I'm conscious we spent over 2 hours rightly going through the roads report and the importance of that to our city and district, but it would be remiss of us not in the same meeting to also point out the importance of the Department of Infrastructure's role in dealing with the real investment in the Northwest and servicing people. We know during this meeting, indeed, we've had an email from TransLink telling us about their late bus and train services confirmed for the Northwest this Christmas, which are great to see. They last around a month from the end of this month into late December. However, we could do with those services on a 12-month basis across our city line, because there is a huge amount of energy and goodwill towards our rail service in among the population here, but we don't have the facilities and the investment in the line that is required. I'm conscious that there's a business case before the Minister for the Department of Infrastructure at the moment. There had been a business case submitted in early 2024, but it sat there and didn't receive sign-off, so there's an updated version has been submitted now. So I think it's really important that the Department of Infrastructure deal with that business case as quickly as they can, so that we can have the investment in the rail line to tackle the economic disparity across the rail system. Chair, that's the first item I wanted to come in on. Are you happy for me to go on to the second one? Okay, thank you, Chair. Chair, in recent days, and in stark contrast to the name of the location where it happened, which was the Peace Bridge, we had an attack on two young males in our city, which has been described and has been treated as a hate crime. A homophobic attack on those two individuals. Obviously, we want to see those two individuals make a full recovery, both physically and mentally, from the ordeal. But on a Saturday night, any citizen across our council area should be able to walk the streets safely. We know that attacks of this nature, when they're homophobic in intent, have a bigger impact across the LGBTQIA community. So we want to stand in solidarity with those people across our council area, and hope that those responsible for that attack can be brought to justice. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. Councillor Hargan.
Thank you, Chair, and I want to thank Councillor Riley for, first of all, raising both of these issues, but I wanted to speak firstly to the second issue that Martin raised, because, yeah, there was an awful attack on two young men on the Peace Bridge on Saturday night, and it's an absolute disgrace. and there was shocking images circulated of the amount of the physical attack that they endured. And I think people were shocked that this has happened in our city, because I feel a lot of people want our city to be an inclusive place that's welcoming to everybody, no matter what your sexual orientation is, no matter what your gender is, no matter what your background is or your community. And I think that this is, so I think there's a lot of anger. There was a lot of compassion for the people who were attacked. And I think that we want a city that doesn't tolerate, homophobic attacks. And unfortunately, I think in recent months, in recent years, we've actually seen a rise in homophobic attacks. And this is when people use rhetoric that scapegoats people. This is what happens, because people think it's okay to attack people that are different or different from you. And I think this is the outworkings of it. And I think as a council, we have to be very clear that this doesn't represent us and we won't allow it to happen. And we stand in full solidarity with the LGBTQ plus community across our city and district. So again, thank you to Councillor Riley for mentioning this. And then just on the other item that Martin raised as well, if that's okay, Chair. I think it is great that we've got expanded and extended services for rail throughout the festive period. But as Councillor Riley said, there is no reason now why this can't be all year round. And we have Translink saying it'll cost £1 million to allow for equalisation of train and rail services for the Derry, the Belfast line, and that we've made that case as a council. We've backed the motions, we've supported Into the West. So we need to see action from the Infrastructure Minister in terms of funding it. But I was worried by what the Infrastructure Minister said recently in the Assembly about the constraints, the budgetary constraints, in regard to the final phase of the upgrade of the Derry to Coleraine line, which is now estimated to cost something like £97 million. And that's only that cost because of the delay. One minister after another has delayed that progress, and we can't delay it any further because we need it, but also because if inflation keeps going up, that will rise yet again, making it more impossible to actually do the work. So I think we need to have that business case done and acted on as soon as possible, so we can utilise rail as much as the public want us to have indicated that they want it to be available. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Councillor Harkin. Councillor Boggs.
And can I also thank Councillor Riley for raising the issue in relation to the incident on the Peace Bridge. I think we overuse the word shocking at times whenever we're describing some of these instances, but I truly believe that this is shocking, because I personally thought, and our party had hoped maybe, that we were past these instances, particularly in relation to people's sexuality. But I do agree with Councillor Harkin and what he is alluding to, that these things don't happen in a vacuum or in isolation. They happen because of the rhetoric that some people choose to use, whether it be in the political sphere or on social media or on media outlets. The type of hate that the LGBTQ plus community feel and now see and love, as we've seen with the attack on the Peace Bridge, is because of some of the language, the grotesque language and the hate and the vitriol that some people choose to level against people who, as Councillor Harkin described, are different from them or don't have the same beliefs as them, or choose to lead a different life than them. So it's absolutely heartbreaking, to be perfectly honest. And it needs called out at every opportunity, and hopefully we don't need to take the opportunity again to call out similar attacks, but where they do raise their ugly head, they need to be stamped out and fought back against, because it's not acceptable. And we send our full solidarity to the two individuals involved in this case, and we hope to see justice prevail, because it needs to send a clear signal that it won't be tolerated, not in this city and district and not anywhere across this island. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Boggs.
Or am I good, Chair? And again, like the previous speakers, I'd like to thank Councillor Riley for bringing this issue up. and agree with the previous speakers, Chair. There is no place for this type of hatred. It's absolutely, it's sickening as it's been described, but it's very, very saddening when you think that people will be attacked, as Councillor Harkin said, because they're different. There can't be a tolerance of that. Homophobic attacks, sectarianism, racism, it's wrong. And I do agree again with the previous speakers that there are people in this city and district, and there are people at political levels who are intolerant, and they have a responsibility with their words, that it gives people who would want to go out and attack people because they are different. It gives them comfort, and it cannot be tolerated, and it's completely and absolutely wrong. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Donnelly. I totally agree. As chair of this committee, I totally condemn that attack. It's just shocking that anybody in this day and age can't walk across a bridge and feel that they're going to be attacked. It's just terrible that people can't love and just be respectful to anybody else who, I don't even like this terminology that they're different. That's a load of nonsense. Nobody's different. It's just we should be able to live in this community, in this world, without people having to be attacked. The next item is number 7.
Chair, I had indicated to come online there.
Oh, sorry, Alderman Mullen, I didn't see that.
Not a problem. Thank you, Chair, for letting me in. So to put on record, the DUP condemn all acts of violence. We trust that the PSNI will do a thorough job to bring justice for these 2 young men. We wish them both a speedy recovery, and I truly hope that they get the support they need to deal with the trauma that's going to come long after the bruises and the marks are away. Our city should be an area that is safe for men, women, children, and visitors. Fully condemn this. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Mullen. Alderman Hussey.
Yeah, just very briefly to support the condemnation that has been forthcoming. Whether such abuse is physical or verbal is totally unacceptable. People are entitled to live their lives as they see they wish to live their lives, and should be allowed to do so freely. It's totally unacceptable, this sort of reaction. And I suppose it brings to mind the situation in Strabane where a young man was assaulted by an adult during a sports fixture, and I'm sure members will equally condemn that sort of activity as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Alderman Hussey. And absolutely, any attack on anybody, child, adult, or anybody is totally condemned. Thank you. The next item is matters arising from open minutes of the Environment and Regeneration Committee held on Wednesday, the 15th of October 2025, pages 5 to 18.
Propose for
Councillor
accuracy.
Riley.
Happy to propose for accuracy first, Chair, and then I have a matter arising.
Need a second. Councillor Farrell. Go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, so matter arising ER 224/25. It was the White Butterfly Foundation erection of a memorial within the city cemetery. Chair, just to be attached onto that item, I'm conscious that myself and others had a tour of the city cemetery around the Halloween period. I'm also conscious that there's tours or tour organised for tomorrow for the new city cemetery out at Mullennan, which is really good to see, and thanks to officers for organising that to date. Just in relation to the city cemetery then, I'm conscious that in the city cemetery there are a number of unmarked so-called poor plots, and they are burial grounds for both people from the Catholic faith and the Protestant faith. And I think there's around 5 different locations within the city cemetery that are not marked as grave sites. They are easily confused with grass bankings. And it would be remiss of us not to make sure that as we come to the end of the use of the city cemetery and look towards the commencement of burials taking place at the new cemetery at Mullennan, that we leave the city cemetery in a way that is appropriately marked for all the bodies that are there over the centuries. It strikes me that there is an opportunity here to both look backwards and forwards in terms of looking to the city's past and marking the poor plots in that way, but also looking to the future in terms of using new technologies, the likes of QR codes, etc., to link visitors to the cemetery to the council's own website. And the archival work that has happened over recent years has been excellent, so that people from wherever they are in the world can log on to the website and trace their ancestry. But we don't have that on display, and the opportunities of that at the council cemetery. I have, Chair, spoken to council officers and have to thank Paul Coyle and the team for getting back to me so promptly. As I said, I'm conscious we'll be speaking to officers tomorrow when we're out at Mullennan, but could I ask at this committee that officers bring back a report on how we best can mark the relevant poor plots within the council's city cemetery, because I think that it would be only fitting that we do that ahead of opening the new cemetery in Milan. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, through you, happy to bring a report back for members' consideration.
Thank you, Conor.
Councillor Boggs.
Yeah, just briefly, can we include in that report whether there are similar plots across any of our other cemeteries? I don't think Councillor Riley has intentionally omitted the fact that there may be similar across the rest of our cemeteries, but just when the paper's coming back, could we have that to consider as well?
Yeah, to you, Chair, and thanks to Councillor Boggs for raising that. I absolutely 100% do that. The reason I didn't include in my initial remarks was because I wanted to have a conversation with officers when we're out at Mullennan tomorrow. I did speak to officers specifically about the city cemetery, but I'm conscious that there are many other cemeteries and there may be similar issues there. But given that we're closing the city cemetery, that's why I wanted to make it specific to that cemetery for now. But yes, if the paper can reflect the issue on a citywide basis, that would be appreciated.
Chair, happy to do that. We'll take it forward on the district basis on the number of cemeteries. And just to clarify a point, and I'm sure Councillor Riley wasn't intending anything, and the city cemetery is not closing. It will be closed to new burials at a point in time, but the cemetery will operate for many, many, many years to come.
Very good. Thank you.
Chair.
All right, Councillor, our Alderman Hussey.
Thanks. Just very briefly, and it's not, I totally agree with the ensuring that those graves, those sites are marked within the city cemetery, but just with reference to the new cemetery, and I suppose it's something I should have raised when DFI were in with us, and that's connectivity between the city and the new cemetery. Could Conor give us an update at some stage on what discussions are taking place to improve that connectivity? And I know there's the issue of the Greenway, etc., but is there any engagement with DFI as to the connectivity footpath or whatever along the road itself, or indeed transport connections to improve that connectivity out to the new site? Thank you, Chair.
Chair, again, happy to bring back a report, but we are engaging with TransLink on connection through buses and so on, public transport, and DFI in terms of signposting. But we're happy to bring a report back to members with further and updated information once we bottom that out. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Alderman Hussey. Everybody happy. The next item on for open to decision is number 8, the street naming and property numbering request for installation of dual language signage, page 19-22.
Chair, that's myself taking that item as to advise and seek members' recommendations with regard to the outcome of recent applications to provide dual language signage at Lisnacloon Road, Castledare, Clonliff Park and Eddickmore Park, Derry, Altaskane and Towncastle Road, Strabane. And table 2.1 sets out the streets again and the location and the preferred language, second language, which is Irish. In accordance with the Council's dual language and street naming policy, Council has undertaken a plebiscite in each of the streets, and the results were detailed as in Table 3.1. Accordingly, in accordance with the Derry City Strabane Council policy on street naming and property number, the plebiscite of Lisbon Road, Castledare, Clonlift Park, Knightmoor Park, Derry, Altaskane and Towncastle Road, Strabane achieved the minimum consent threshold of 15% required for dual language signage to be considered by Council, and members are therefore asked to approve the erection of dual language street signage at the streets named. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Conor. Councillor Boggs.
Yep, happy to propose the recommendations, Chair. And can I also just ask, I know it was maybe circulated previously, but could we get an updated list of applications that are currently in the system and where they're at? I think the last one maybe had timelines about when we hope to maybe get the consultation and when we maybe hope to get the installation. So if that could just be sent out for the whole council there, if you don't mind at all. Sure.
We're happy to do that.
Councillor McGinley.
I was going to ask a similar question to Councillor Boggs, but I'm content to second the proposal for the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor McGinley. Alderman Kerrigan.
Chair, thanks very much for allowing me in. Chair, I thought, maybe I'm wrong on it, and apologies, the mod office went down on me and I can't get back into the pack here presently, but I thought we were to get, maybe I'm wrong, but in the discussions way on, and that I thought we were to sort of be notified when an application was coming through on some of the roads, rather than it coming in then and then you see in the information, or if I missed that in regards to when that information comes out. That was one of the things I'd specifically asked in regards to it when the discussion went on when we were looking at the policy. So as I say, I do note that none of these applications have reached I know they've reached the 15%, but none of them have reached the 50% threshold. I would have been, I know myself and some of my colleagues would have been content, or it had been 66% or plus 66, was reduced to 15, and I say none of these have reached the 50%, these applications. So I'm querying in that regard, is that not the case, or was that included in it? In regards to it, I know, and I do see what Councillor Boggs and Councillor McGinley have been querying in regards to them, but I thought we were to get notification when an application was made to know if it was in our own, well, particularly if it was in our own DAs, but am I wrong in that?
Chair, as I understand it, the list of applications on the system was circulated previously. That had been there for quite some time and included these applications. So they're done in the order that they come into council. With regard to the threshold, the members had previously approved the threshold as set out in the report at 15%, and these applications are consistent with that threshold report. As members have asked, we'll recirculate the list of all the current applications that are sitting on the list, but this had previously been circulated to members in consideration of that request. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Conor. Alderman Hussey.
Yeah, Chair, just to confirm Alderman Kerrigan's view that I was at that same meeting that issue was discussed with Ellen, and that was also my understanding. Further to that, I think there was also an indication that we would have clarification as to whether it was a councillor request or a resident request. Councillor Kerrigan may wish to confirm or otherwise that part of it as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Hussey. It's proposed and seconded, Alderman Hussey. Sorry, Councillor Farrell.
Thank you, Chair. And just to confirm the SLP's support for this recommendation, I think there might be dissent online. So it's good to see, and it's good to see all the applications go over the 15%. And I particularly welcome the successful applications for Knightmoor Park and Clonlift and Ballyernet. Thank you.
Alderman Kerrigan.
Sorry, Chair, just a point of clarification. I do concur with Alderman Hussey's point there. Thought it was we were to get notified then if it was who had put the application in. But Chair, just as it was, I know that is the policy of the council, but Chair, my own view is they haven't reached the 50%, and I was in opposition to the 15% when it was come through the policy. So therefore, as these applications have not reached 50%, I will be against the recommendation as brought forward. Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, Alderman Kerrigan, it's 15%. It was taken through council and it was 15%.
I understand, Chair, but I voted against it when it was brought to 15. I was willing to accept 50%, but I understand that, Chair. I was willing to accept 50% plus one, but it's 15%, and therefore I'm not content with that, because it's I'm not going to go into comment. We've rehearsed this before, but Chair, I'm not content with it. So as therefore I'm in opposition at this stage. Thank you very much, Chair.
Right then, we have to go to a vote. So we do. So.
Okay, Chair. I'll take you through the register. So you're voting for the recommendation on the proposal. That's to provide dual language signage for the streets in question. So Alderman Hussey.
Abstain.
Alderman Kerrigan.
I'll go against, Connor. Thank you.
Okay. Alderman Middleton.
Against.
Councillor Boggs.
Aye.
Councillor Boyle.
For.
Councillor Denny is apologies. Councillor Donnelly. Councillor Duffy. Councillor Duffy. Councillor Farrell.
For.
Councillor Fleming. Councillor McGinley.
Ta, Connor.
Councillor Murphy. Councillor Norris.
For.
And Councillor Riley.
For.
Connor.
Yes.
So I am having some issues here. Ta.
Okay. Chair, I make that 8 for, 2 against and 1 abstention.
So that proposal goes through. That takes us on to number 9, street naming and property numbering request for development name. Page 23 to 24. That's okay. Item number 10, Sycamore Tree of Hope, Tunny Strabane, pages 35 to 36. Colin.
Through you, Chair. The purpose of the report is to give an update on the planting of a commemorative sycamore tree for John Gallagher at the Tinnies in Strabane. And this tree has been donated by the National Trust through their Trees of Hope initiative. Members will recall at the recognition panel in July this year, and later a committee item presented to Governance and Strategic Planning in September to endorse this this request. Specifically with regard to the Tree of Hope, it was agreed in principle holding advice on the suitability of the location. For members' information, the tree itself is actually a sapling that's been propagated from the sycamore gap tree, which was felled in September 2004. And these have been provided as an initiative by the National Trust. A number of sites were considered, namely the Council Office at Derry Road, Strachan's Road Facility, the Giants in Sperrin, Rivering and the Tinnies in Strabane. It was felt from a civic perspective that the Tinnies is the preferred site. As there is already a commemorative tree there that was planted by the former mayor as part of a COVID initiative. For members' information, sycamore trees can go quite large, so therefore consideration needs to be given to this actual siting, so it doesn't visually impact on the Tinnie sculpture. Obviously, we also need to consider that any impact in terms of future vesting that might have on the A5, so we need to look at those to mitigate its removal if necessary at a later stage. It is proposed to plant the tree on Saturday the 22nd of November, and that aligns to National Tree Week. In 3.4, the proposed wording was provided to us on the wording for a plaque, which members can review. From an equality and rural point of view and climate, trees positively contribute to tackling climate change. There are no costs incurred this initiative at this stage, and members are asked to endorse the contents of this report.
Thank you, Councillor Boggs.
Dermot, and thank you, Colin, for the report. And can I welcome the report, and on behalf of Sinn Féin, more than happy to propose the recommendation. I think it's very positive, particularly for the Gallagher family. And I listened to John Gallagher's daughter Erin on the radio this morning, and John's brother-in-law as well. And you can sense from them how important it is. This tree, I think they reiterated it much better than I could as well, in relation to the fact that the sapling is coming from a felled tree and is the only one of its kind to come to this island. So I think that is also very fitting, having known John and known the Gallagher family. It's very fitting that this tree has that extra added layer of specialness. So just to welcome the proposal and look forward to the tree being planted. I think it also serves as an important reminder of the impacts of MND, motor neuron disease, which unfortunately John had. And as I say, his daughter Erin this morning spoke about the impact, the real life impact of MND. And hopefully the planting of this tree will go in some way to raise an awareness around that awful disease as well. So very much welcome the report, as I say, and look forward to seeing the sapling being planted. Gurmuggets, Chair.
Councillor Riley.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, for bringing me in. I'm happy to fully endorse the report and the previous comments by Councillor Boggs, and formally second the proposal before us this afternoon. Like Councillor Boggs, I heard Erin and John on the radio this morning, and you could hear it in their voices what this means to them as a family, but also how it'll speak to people beyond the Strabane area in terms of this being the only location for the sapling in Northern Ireland, and the wider impact that'll have in terms of attracting people from the other regions where the sycamore tree will be planted to come and see the sapling in Strabane. And as Councillor Boggs has said, will give a chance for the MND charities to be able to raise awareness about that awful disease, and happy that this will come to fruition in the next couple of days. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. Councillor Barr.
Thank you for that, Madam Chair. I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank council officers for the work that they're doing on this. I'd also like to thank Alderman Hussey for seconding my proposal for council to facilitate the planting of this tree on council property. Most importantly, I'd like to thank John Donnelly for his excellent, successful application, which has resulted in this iconic award coming to Strabane. The sapling, which is one of 49 taken from the world famous sycamore gap tree, is iconic. It deserves an iconic site, and that site is the Tinnies. John Gallagher, in whose memory the tree is being planted, was a highly valued and respected member of the Strabane community. It's an iconic award from the National Trust. It's internationally acclaimed, and it deserves a fitting site. It will attract tourists, will attract schools. It'll be a tremendous asset to Strabane. So thank you to all concerned.
Thank you, Councillor Barr. Alderman Hussey.
Chair, I was absolutely delighted and privileged to support Councillor Barr when he made the initial request that this would be granted. I think it was a tremendous initiative. And I'll say it, of worldwide significance, given the spread of the saplings that will emerge from the fallen sycamore gap tree. Tremendous project altogether, and a recipient of the acknowledgement. I trust that when we place the sycamore tree in Strabane, that we don't have to move it again, that the site will not be impacted going forward. If it is, well and good, but I trust that we can have that all resolved before any such need would occur. But well done to all involved, and particularly yourself, Councillor Barr. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Hussey. That's been proposed and seconded. Open for information now. I'll just go for each one. So the first one, number 11, is building control applications, pages 37 to 40. Connor. Just propose. Number 12, proposed disabled parking bays across city and district. Uh, $49 to $52. This next item is a presentation from Colin and Neil. Top of the Hill Park Master Plan, pages 53 to 70.
Through you, Chair, the purpose of this item is to give a 10-minute presentation, which will be delivered by my colleague Neil Campbell here. So just in terms of some background, it's an action within the Green Infrastructure Plan, and it's also an action within Council's Strategic Growth Plan to support the delivery of an area-based regeneration projects and initiatives, including Top of the Hill Master Plan and also Drummohare Area Development Plan. Members will recall that in June 24, that officers were requested to establish a steering group, which we effectively did, which comprised of local elected members from the DEA and also in terms of community representatives from Hillcrest Trust to Hillcrest Youth Centre, Dementia, Top of the Hill Celtic and Derry Trasna. In terms of agreeing the scope of the work, it was agreed that it would consider all council-owned lands at the top of the hill, which are inclusive of the country park itself, Kelly's Field and Eskaheen View, and it would also consider any live planning applications within the immediate environs to see how they may impact on the proposed master plan. So as I said, Neil will give you a 10-minute presentation in terms of the various different steps for the project. What we also need to do in tandem with this is have more internal engagement with our health and community colleagues on the supporting elements of the project and indeed planning service. And what we would hope to do in the new year, we're just mindful of the Christmas holidays, etc. On the 27th of January, that we'd host a one-day pop-in event at the Cree Centre in Top of the Hill. And obviously what we'll do in the new year is that we will socialise this using our media connections and networks. So obviously, green infrastructure projects contribute positively towards the climate change agenda. There have been no costs incurred at this stage in the design, development or facilitation of this project, as these are all done in-house by our own in-house landscape architects. But maybe at a later stage, there may be a funding request from some development funding through the Capital Work Group to take forward specific aspects of the project. So following Neil's presentation, what we would request is members endorse the wider engagement of the master plan as outlined in the report. Thank you.
There you go. Thank you very much, Colin. And through the chair, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, members. My name is Neil Campbell, as Colin has already mentioned. I'm a green infrastructure designer in Colin's team, and I've put a bit of work into this presentation. So I'm very grateful for your time tonight to have a listen, and I'll try to talk you through that presentation. So thank you very much. So basically, if I go to the next slide, please, Sean, it's basically a brief structure here. It's a design process which takes you through basically from inception, context, analysis, and into some design development, and then hopefully we'll finish on the actual master plan at the end. So slide 2, if we can go to the next slide, please, Sean, thank you. The master plan was prepared in response to committee's request to develop a long-term sustainable design framework for council-owned lands, which Colin has already mentioned, in the Top of the Hill area. So it fulfills commitments within the Green Infrastructure Plan 2023 and aligns with the Strategic Growth Plan 2017 to 2032. The aim is to establish a clear spatial vision that supports area-based regeneration and connects communities to nature and delivers social and environmental value. The plan has been developed in close collaboration with the Hillcrest Trust, community representatives and local elected members who have been consulted throughout the structured series of meetings since January 2025. Their input has been invaluable in shaping the priorities, ensuring the proposals respond directly to local needs and aspirations. So if you go to the next slide, please, Sean, thank you. So basically we've started with a little bit of site analysis, and some of that would have included perhaps site visits and detailed desktop or baseline studies, which would include sort of formulating site mapping information, topographical surveys commissioned, and including meetings with, for example, the crime prevention officer on site to look at existing issues that may
we could try to improve, such as violence against women and girls and things like that, trying to eradicate, making safer spaces. We also met our biodiversity officer on site. A significant piece of work was undertaken to look at the land ownership of the site, which is quite important, along with some utility surveys. So next slide, please, if you could. We also conducted a planning background search as well on the site to look at any existing and historic planning applications. So monthly steering group meetings were carried out between January and October, and this helped us to understand historical use, current conditions and community requirements. The photographic survey and orthomap shows that these sites form substantial green assets right on the city's edge. So with close proximity to the city centre, and they already serve the community well. However, there is significant untapped potential for recreation, biodiversity and education that the master plan aims to unlock. So next slide, please, Sean, thank you. So we were looking at some schematic design initially to try and hit the brief, which had a number of items within the brief. Some of those early design concepts basically formulated a shopping list from the community's requirements, and they included a new play park, a football pitch, changing facilities, community allotments, a men's shed, a bonscoil, a youth centre, and also to consider an apiary, which is a beekeeping facility, as well as obviously knitting these together with looking at road infrastructure access and parking arrangements and things to tie it all together. So our task was basically to locate these elements sensitively across the two key sites, balancing accessibility, active travel connections, biodiversity, site topography and land ownership. The spatial diagrams shown on the screen illustrate how these priorities informed the early layout. At Eskaheen View, the focus was on community scale facilities such as allotments, men's shed and greenway access, including pedestrian connections to surrounding neighbourhoods. The top of the hill country park area, the emphasis was on sport, play and ecological enhancement. And these early layouts that you're looking at formed the basis for the development of the design work. So if you go to the next slide, please, Sean, thank you. So we looked at some bubble diagrams with the community. So we worked out several of these and reiterated them a few times to get the correct formula in accordance with the steering group representatives. So these took into consideration things like topography, parking requirements, and tried to hit the key elements. You can see on the screen that we basically had number one is the new clubhouse for the Pierce's Gaelic Football Club with associated parking, a kickabout space. We also have a lower car park and access servicing a new district play park, and an upper car park, which is the existing car park proposed to be, considered to be extended to provide a toilet facility and changing place for the football pitch and use from the play park if required. So it also connects in to create value for money by looking at existing pathway networks to try and utilize existing networks and to connect them with fully accessible arrangements. So if you go to the next slide, please. This slide currently shows the Eskaheen View initial developments. So we're looking at putting in our community allotments and parking at the site, creating a vehicular access off Fox Hill, and putting into place a men's shed apiary, and generally creating a positive place that connects well with the wider space. The reason for locating the site here is because it is located on council land. There are three segments of land that ownership under the Eskaheen View. One of them is currently the middle section of that long area, which is under ownership of DFI, with the two end sections owned by council. So we strategically located the site because it has potential vehicular access subject to planning consent. So if you go to the next slide, please. So we investigated some further development to maybe put a little bit more feasibility and technical standards into our early development drawings. If you go to the next slide, please, Sean, thank you. So this was probably the final outcome for the Eskaheen, which shows the proposals and how, well, basically we want to create a lovely green park. And there is a vision here, you know, and this is what I'm looking at, is to try and create. There's a wonderful potential facility there that if you have a bit of vision and connect things together, there's a great potential project there, subject to statutory consents and community buy-in. But basically, there's this drawing you're looking at that now is the vision of how we could maximize what's there and maybe potentially transform that area into something much more useful for the benefit of the community. So if we could go to the next slide, please. This is a further technical study to try and make our proposals a reality by maybe thrashing out issues to make sure that they're actually feasible before we take them forward. So this drawing shows a little bit more technical standards in terms of gradients, maintenance requirements, fencing, security, and existing utilities that may prevent a site from being taken forward. So I've aimed to detail it a little bit more technically to give us a better chance if these things come to fruition. So if we go to the next slide, please, Sean. Again, these are some technical sections that highlight the underground services within that area and the existing topography of the site, which is quite steep. So cut and fill, it highlights the realities of the site, that it's on a slope, and tries to accommodate that to make the project feasible to take forward. Next slide, please, Sean. So this was the product of the 9 or 10 months of consultations with the community. We produced a master plan for the top of the hill country park area, which I've tried to show wider context of forthcoming or existing planning applications of woodland trust facilities that could be utilised and reimagined to be of benefit to the community in the form of walking trails, connectivity, active travel, all the things which are valuable and important to communities and healthy societies. So I've actually looked at the landscape principles of ecotherapy park to how this space could realise its potential, and with a little bit of investment and imagination could be very, very useful to the community of the top of the hill area and a much wider circle as well. So some of the key points in this are locating safe spaces which are easily visible to make the space safe, but also putting amenities into the site such as play park, sports facilities for all of the city to use, and also Bunscoil and Youth Centre. But also the climate issue too. There's an opportunity to look at sustainable urban drainage systems which tackle flooding. We had a conversation with DFI Roads earlier about flooding issues, but this is an opportunity to perhaps build some of those into the forthcoming vision. So that is there to be reviewed in more detail if you require, but if we go to the next slide, please, Sean. So the final master plan, the next slide again, please, Sean, thank you very much. And that's the last slide, is how we combine all of these things together. The work undertaken at Eskaheen. There's also the work at Kelly's Field, which may include tourism opportunities and a chance to create a revenue source from trading place facilities, such as a viewing platform, because the views in this area are second to none. And generally, this is the overview of the site, which you're free to review and come back with any questions. So I'd just like to thank the steering group and the members for assisting to prepare this piece of work, the local community for their continued input and their partnership throughout this process. So Chair and members, that concludes my presentation, and Colin or myself will be happy to take any questions on that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Colin and Neil. Councillor Riley.
Thanks, Chair, for bringing me in. Thanks to Colin and to Neil for the presentation this afternoon, and the sheer volume of the presentation that has been talked through, I think, is an indication of the impact that this area and this master plan will have for the wider water side, and it is an opportunity to transform that whole area and to accompany applications in the system for additional housing to provide much needed social housing for people right across the water side. I'm not going to allow the sort of caveat that's there on page 118 around the fact that there needs to be further technical studies and statutory consents to dilute down, I think, the positivity that's there in the report. I accept totally why they're there on page 118. And I also want to pay tribute to all the people in the steering group. Councillor Mooney, for example, from the SDLP, has been a regular attender at all those meetings to give an indication of the support from the political sector in terms of council, but also drawing in the community support that's there and shaping this plan. Over this past number of months, all of that hard work is here on the screens for us to consider this evening. So, Chair, more than happy to propose the recommendation that we progress with this. Certainly keen to see the event take place on the 27th of January. Early in the new year, to give a sense of impetus and energy towards delivering this as soon as we can for all the people that live in that part of the waterside and all those that will live in it in the future, should all the planning applications that are in the system work their way through. And Chair, just finally, I suppose in respect of the points of those who live there currently and the implications for them, I'm conscious that on the screen earlier, I think it was in red, bullet point 4, there was a picture of what would be locally known as the quarry steps and the area that's there and how that connects into the from the master plan down to Spencer Road. I'm conscious that there's probably seasonal issues in terms of the need to trim back hedges and ensure that those steps are as safe and as clear of litter, etc., as possible. I know officers have been able to work with relevant bodies in the past to get that cleaned up, but it is in need of similar attention again at the moment. But that's an aside beyond the very positive report that are there. So, as I said, Chair, happy to support the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. Councillor Jackson.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for bringing me on. And thanks for Neil for not only the report, but all the work that's been put into it. Neil, Colin, Maura have done an extensive piece of work working with the community to get us this far. They developed the plans that we see in front of us today. So I want to give a heartfelt thanks to all officers involved on behalf of not only the community, but on behalf of our party. There's not only are we asking council now to endorse this vision, because there's massive potential as outlined in the report. There's massive ambition from organisations that are delivering services within our community. But to achieve them, we need to be working collaboratively with council, and this piece of work enshrines that, and that I hope as we move into the delivery phase, as we progress through this, that collaborative work will step up. So I just wanted to jump on and offer my thanks to the officers that attended the steering group meetings, the community partners that have had this vision hasn't appeared overnight. The vision and the aspirations of groups like Capel Hill Celtic, the Piercy, the Bunskull, have been aspirations that have been held for many years. So it's fantastic to get council endorsement, and I know even in terms of the inclusion of an apiary, that is something that is directly coming for a direct request coming from residents. The inclusion of allotments is positive use of a space that for many residents they fear around potential development on it. This is an opportunity for us to deliver a plan and progress a plan that has the full buy-in of the residents and the community. So I really look forward to the consultation event on the 27th of January, and look forward to further engagement with council as we step through the gears and see elements of this project being delivered. So just jumping on to offer my thanks to officers on the back of many months of diligent work. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. As chair, I'd just like to say it's to thank the team as well. That's an amazing piece of work. I love the vision. The work has went into that. Anybody knows the work has went into that. It's just tremendous, you know, and the hard work has went into that. So really like to thank the team for that. The next two. So item 15, the flooding issues update. Councillor Riley.
Yeah, Chair, thank you. I'm conscious that the paper indicated that there wasn't a report received, but then Kerry was kind enough to email round all members the response that was received in from DFI. In relation to the email, it does indicate that in relation to Drumahoe, that I'm quoting the email now, the benefit cost ratio for the preferred option in Drumahoe is currently marginal. However, broader economic and societal benefits associated with the proposed intervention will be taken into consideration within the outline business case. Can I just record our thanks for that being included ahead of today's committee meeting? I think this is the first time that in relation to the Drumahoe scheme that we've had that confirmation from DFI that there is an assessment that's been undertaken in terms of the costings that were required for this and the impact that it will have. And I'm reading from that a positivity that DFI are looking at that and mirroring in what we have said in this chamber many times, that the impact that the flooding has a huge societal impact on the people affected beyond the immediacy of dealing with the damage to their properties, but there's a huge societal problem attached with the recovery from the flooding experience. So, Chair, happy to see that on the agenda, and I think it would be remiss of us not to note the positivity that's there in the DFI response, and let's hope that we can see some positive further progress on that as we move forward. Thank you.
You, Councillor Riley. The next item's number 16, my boy update from Dara. I don't want to hold up the meeting anymore, but I've been approached by various people, various concerned members of the public around various things that's going up at the site. There's car racing going up at the site. There's fly tipping going on at the site. So, and as I'm well aware of that, to me, is a policing issue. But I think this is an opportunity. So I'd like to propose to write to the minister to ask him when does he believe that he's going to vest the site? Because that's how we put an end to all this. We vest the site, we build a fence, we build CCTV, we break up the concrete down there that's not going to allow the car racing to continue. But I think that's my proposal, that we ask him where he's at, because until he vests the site and takes control, they're going to have to vest the site anyway to allow them to remediate. So I think it's time that they need to vest the site now. I need a seconder. Councillor Boyd. Everybody happy with that? Thank you. The next now is I need a proposer and seconder to go into confidential. Councillor Boyle, Councillor Boggs. Sean.